Chapter 464. Killing a person's heart. If it were in the past, Qin Sheng would be very willing to make friends with different people. In this way, he could learn more about the wonderful world and stories without any concerns or taboos. But now, Qin Sheng's identity and status had undergone a world of difference. When he met new friends, Qin Sheng would think about these people's motives, especially those who already knew his new identity. The premise of these people was benefit. Otherwise, with their status, who would be willing to take the initiative to make ordinary friends? Therefore, it was difficult for Qin Sheng to become real friends with Wei Li. They both knew each other well and then made a choice. Han Su, who was heartless, could become friends with Qin Sheng because he did not want to get anything from Qin Sheng from the beginning. But Qin Sheng still kept vigilant. After all, the road was slippery in the dark, and it was easy for him to fall. Thinking of this, Qin Sheng suddenly felt a little tired. But if he wanted to move forward, how many people would not be tired? If you chose an ordinary road, you would definitely not feel tired. Every day you would drink rice, oil, salt, soy, vinegar, tea, raise flowers, walk birds, and talk about life. But for Qin Sheng, if he did not experience the ups and downs of life and the high scenery, being ordinary was just an excuse for his incompetence and escape. Mediocrity was the label others gave him. The 2 classes in the morning passed quickly. The young head teacher, who had become the deputy dean, rarely talked with the students. They talked about all kinds of things they had seen and heard during the spring festival, but the focus was still on the economic field. The students spoke enthusiastically, and all kinds of unique opinions made the head teacher nod silently. Qin Sheng also took notes modestly. This was the stage he would go through in the future. During lunch, Han Su, who followed Qin Sheng around, naturally wanted to take him to a restaurant. Qin Sheng took the opportunity to call Wei Li and Han Su's girlfriend from law school. The 4 of them ate their food and clothing in a Sichuan restaurant outside. Qin Sheng called Chang Baji and Hao Lei, but they did not want to come. They said that they could eat in the cafeteria of Tsinghua University. After that, they had to continue to visit the highest university in the country. It was so King Big. Han Su and Wei Li did not have much contact with each other, but both of them were quite popular. Han Su only looked for people with similar interests, and he looked down on those who were pretentious or hypocritical. Wei Li, on the other hand, did not reject anyone. As long as they were classmates, he could build a good relationship. After all, the classmates here were all very valuable. Han Su did not like Wei Li very much. Since Qin Sheng called Wei Li, of course, he could not say anything. Wei Li wanted to make friends with Han Su, but Han Su intentionally kept a distance from him. Wei Li did not want to be snubbed. Among this group of classmates, Qin Sheng had the strongest background. Since he had already made friends with Qin Sheng, he did not care about anything else. It was just the icing on the cake. Wei Li, I heard that you are from Hangzhou. I'm going to spend some time there. At that time, you should recommend some interesting places. It is said that the nightclubs in Hangzhou are very good. Han Su deliberately adjusted the atmosphere and took the initiative to talk to Wei Li, not afraid that Wei Li was there. Hearing this, Wei Li said happily, "You don't need to say that. As long as you come to Hangzhou, I will definitely accompany you to eat and have fun all the way. I will let you leave Hangzhou happily." Han Su's girlfriend, Zhang Mi, smiled and said, "Brother Li, you are too polite. Will we disturb you? You are all busy people." Wei Li found it funny and said, "How can we disturb you? It is a pleasure to have friends from afar. No matter who comes to Hangzhou, I will treat them well. This is a must." Han Su looked at Qin Sheng deliberately, and then said to Wei Li, "This is not necessarily true. Someone is the local tyrant of Beijing. We have known each other for so long, but we have never seen someone take us to eat and have fun. Don't you think he is stingy?" Zhang Mi covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly. Her smile was very charming. After all, she was a graduate student of law school. What's more, she could get into Tsinghua University, so she was very smart and knew how to deal with these friends of Han Su. Maybe this was what attracted Han Su to her. I don't stay in Beijing for long, so I don't know much. But if you really want to have fun, I can help you ask my friends, Qin Sheng said gently and did not refuse. Wei Li helped to solve the problem and said, Han Su, Lao Qin is right. If you want to go to Hangzhou, you can ask Lao Qin. He may know better than me. Han Su was very surprised and said, Lao Qin, have you stayed in Hangzhou before? When Wei Li finished saying this, he felt a little uneasy. He was half joking and also trying to find out how close Qin Sheng was to him. He was also guessing if Qin Sheng was willing to let others know about his past. Wei Li's eyes lit up. Qin Sheng was not angry. He smiled and said, I stayed for half a year. If you want to go, I can ask my friends to arrange it. Han Su smiled gently and felt quite at ease in his heart. Han Su laughed and said, Then forget it. You are not there. I have to make money from the host. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. This topic was over. After lunch, they found a tea room and sat for a while. They chatted casually for a while, talking about some gossip and rumors in the business world. However, there was an episode in the middle. That was, Han Su's girlfriend Zhang Mi accidentally mentioned the storm of the Chang'an department. She said that the 3 commissions were investigating the Chang'an department recently, especially the China Banking Regulatory Commission and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. When talking about this matter, the look in Qin Sheng's eyes changed obviously. Wei Li was also staring at Qin Sheng, but he did not think that the Chang'an department would collapse. After all, the background of the Chang'an department was really unfathomable. So he immediately changed the topic, in case Qin Sheng would be unhappy. When it was almost time, everyone planned to go back to the School of Economics and Management to prepare for the 2 classes in the afternoon. The teacher today used to be in a high position, but he retired for several years. He was a member of the advisory committee of the School of Economics and Management. Everyone was waiting for this big shot's good news. As soon as they went back downstairs of the School of Economics and Management, Han Su was ready to say goodbye to his girlfriend Zhang Mi. At this time, a boy in somewhat shabby clothes, wearing thick glasses and messy hair, suddenly walked out. It was estimated that he had not even washed his face. The boy went straight to the crowd. When Zhang Mi, who was holding Han Su's arm tightly, saw the boy, her face turned pale instantly, and she stopped subconsciously. Mimi, what's wrong? Han Su asked with concern. He had not noticed the boy coming. Both Qin Sheng and Wei Li felt that the visitor was not good, but they did not know what it was. They just guessed that it must have something to do with Han Su's girlfriend. Luo Su, why are you here? Zhang Mi asked in a trembling voice. Only then did Han Su notice that there was a strange boy standing in front of him. He frowned and looked at the uninvited guest, more curious about his relationship with Zhang Mi. The boy named Luo Su adjusted his black-rimmed glasses and said with a self-deprecating smile, Mimi, is this your new boyfriend? Zhang Mi didn't know how to answer this question at first. After weighing the pros and cons, she said, Yes, Luo Su, this is my boyfriend. Don't pester me anymore. After hearing this, the boy was a little stunned and then said, Pester me? If I don't stand here today, I won't know that we have broken up. Han Su was about to stand up, but he was stopped by Qin Sheng. Because the boy's answer was very straightforward, not to mention Han Su, Qin Sheng and Wei Li already knew what was going on. It must be that the boy named Luo Su was Zhang Mi's boyfriend, and then Zhang Mi cheated on Luo Su and chose Han Su, who came to Tsinghua University for further study. Luo Su had been kept in the dark. But Qin Sheng was curious about why Zhang Mi, who was so beautiful and elegant, would fall in love with this sloppy boy in front of him. Obviously, this boy must have something extraordinary, and Tsinghua University was not short of geniuses and top students. Luo Su's sudden appearance made Zhang Mi a little overwhelmed. She was afraid of making Han Su angry. For Zhang Mi, Luo Su was a potential stock, and Han Su was a rich husband. Potential stocks were full of unknown risks, while rich husbands were full of profits with little capital. So Zhang Mi's choice must be Han Su. Luo Su, it's impossible between us. Don't pester me anymore. We are not suitable for each other. Zhang Mi was very tactful. She never showed her relationship with Luo Su, so that Han Su would not be angry. Luo Su nodded to Han Su and others with some embarrassment, then looked at Zhang Mi and continued, Mimi, in fact, I have long known that you have a new boyfriend. I also know that he is from Tianjin, and I also know his identity and background. I also admit that he is very excellent. Compared with him, of course, I am not worth mentioning at all. Any normal girl will choose him. To be honest, I envy him very much, but I can't choose my family background. I thought that as long as you give me a few more years, I can give you a happy and comfortable life, but it seems that you don't intend to give me time. In fact, as long as you tell me, I will take the initiative to leave you. I am not an ungrateful person. After all, everyone said that I was a toad eating swan meat. I used to be complacent about it, especially when I took you out and looked at the envious eyes of my friends. Unfortunately, I was happy too early. Zhang Mi was completely flustered and quickly said, Luo Su, don't talk nonsense. Han Su said with a sullen face, let him say it. Luo Su was relieved. After being cheated on by his girlfriend, he could still say these words, which showed that he was rational enough and his heart must be very strong. So he continued, I am a little angry. I wanted to scold you, but then I thought it was unnecessary. After all, I like you so much. If you are in a bad mood, I will be very sad. In fact, I came to you today to talk things out, and then we can break up peacefully. Don't say it, I beg you, don't say it. Zhang Mi had fallen into guilt and contradiction. She felt guilty for letting Luo Su down, and the contradiction was that she was afraid of losing everything. Luo Su heard Zhang Mi's words and sighed. Well, after saying this last sentence, I won't say anything. Mimi, you are a very good girl. I am satisfied to have you. Thank you for accompanying me through this year, thank you. At this moment, many passers-by stopped to watch this farce, especially Luo Su finally bowed to Zhang Mi, which made many people sigh that this boy's heart was too abnormal. After this bow, the boy named Luo Su looked at Han Su again and said, I hope you will treat her well. She is a good girl. After saying the last sentence, Luo Su turned around and left very decisively. Qin Sheng could see that the boy's walking posture was obviously a little trembling. Obviously, he had already burst into tears, and his heart was even more painful. However, although the boy looked very calm and said those words in a humble way, only Qin Sheng, an old fox who had experienced a lot of things, knew that this was the most terrible thing about the boy. Chapter 465. Reap what you sow. Moving is really hard work. There are too many things this month. I'm sorry, everyone. Life is a practice. You will experience many hardships and frustrations. Every hardships and frustrations will leave a mark in your heart, which may be unforgettable for many years. Therefore, many people pursue a clear conscience, but often things go against their wishes. Those marks can't fade away. In the end, they can only pursue to let it go, but it still doesn't make up for it. Maybe until the day they close their eyes, everything will disappear. For example, in today's farce, the boy named Luo Su was really cruel. Those words he said seemed humble, but in fact, they were fatal and pierced Zhang Mi's heart forever. If he scolded Zhang Mi or beat her, maybe she would not feel so sad, but he did not do so. He wanted Zhang Mi to live in guilt and self-blame all the time. Only in this way would Zhang Mi not forget him and always feel sorry for him. Although Qin Sheng was uncomfortable with Luo Su's approach, he did not think there was anything wrong. After all, a man was cheated on by his girlfriend. What crazy things couldn't he do? Luo Su's behavior was not bad. What's more, Zhang Mi reaped what she sowed and could not blame others. However, Qin Sheng did not know what Han Su was thinking. At least Han Su did not stand up for Zhang Mi at this time and still remained calm. But thinking about it, Han Su must be unhappy in his heart. After all, Zhang Mi had a boyfriend. Even if he was just playing with Zhang Mi, being kept in the dark like this, those who did not know would think that he did it on purpose. This was a problem of character. What's more, Han Su could not beat Luo Su. Not to mention the bad influence, he would be added as a bully later. Besides, there was no reason to make an enemy. Luo Su had left. Zhang Mi's face was extremely ugly. At this time, she was not as smooth as when she was eating just now. She was like a poor girl who was abandoned and despised. Han Su glared at Zhang Mi and said, "Zhang Mi, tell me, is what he said true?" "Han Su, it's not what you think." Zhang Mi took Han Su's arm and begged bitterly. Since the matter with Luo Su had been settled, she naturally could not lose Han Su. Otherwise, all her efforts would be in vain. Han Su directly shook off Zhang Mi's arm and said, "Don't explain to me anymore. I'm not King retarded. Although I, Han Su, am a playboy, I don't like to be fooled by others, and I'm even more unwilling to steal someone else's woman. This matter ends here, and we'll never meet again." Hearing this, Zhang Mi burst into tears instantly. She did not expect that things would suddenly turn out like this. It was completely beyond her imagination, but who was to blame? She originally had a good talk with Luo Su. Luo Su was a top student in the Department of International Politics. Although his family conditions were not very good, his ability was particularly strong. From undergraduate to graduate, he had won all the scholarships of Tsinghua University. She also saw Luo Su's potential. However, she met Han Su accidentally through a friend, and the two had an intersection. When Han Su asked her if she had a boyfriend, she hesitated for a moment and finally answered no, because she knew Han Su's background. Compared with Luo Su, a potential stock, Han Su, a ready-made blue-chip stock, was more favored. Zhang Mi was not stupid. At first, she just maintained a relationship with Han Su. Although Han Su always took the initiative to flirt with her, she knew that the Han family's background could not accept a daughter-in-law like her. Han Su had seen all kinds of women, so how could he take her seriously? It was not until Han Su came to Tsinghua University for further study that their relationship made progress. Because she was about to graduate, she or Luo Su could not find a satisfactory job for her with their ability, but Han Su had the ability, so she agreed to Han Su. Whether Han Su just wanted to play with her or really liked her, she did not care. If Han Su just wanted to play with her, she could get enough returns from Han Su. Not to mention the job, the main thing was that she could make more high-level friends with Han Su, which was good for her future development. So she did not break up with Luo Su, but kept it from Luo Su and regarded Luo Su, her real boyfriend, as a spare tire. If Han Su really liked her, when she was sure, she would choose to break up with Luo Su. She knew that Luo Su would not pester her with his character, because Luo Su had said before that if she had a better choice, he would not stop her. So, there was this farce today. Han Su was straightforward. Now that he knew the truth, of course, he would not have anything to do with Zhang Mi anymore. Zhang Mi knew this better, so she still wanted to continue to beg Han Su. Han Su broke away from Zhang Mi again, took Qin Sheng and Wei Li, and was ready to leave without hesitation. Zhang Mi cried bitterly, completely lost her sense of propriety, and directly sat on the ground. Qin Sheng did not intend to leave, but squatted down and said to Zhang Mi, "Zhang Mi, you are a very smart woman, but in the end your cleverness will be ruined by your own cleverness. You can't blame others. When you made a choice, you should have thought of the worst result. Is it pitiful? I don't think it's pitiful at all. It's sad, very sad. But think about how much more sad Luo Su was when he said those words. Zhang Mi, you can owe others anything, but don't owe emotional debt. This kind of debt can't be paid off in a lifetime. The world was full of too many temptations. Not every excellent woman could choose a man with potential, accompany him step by step, and finally stand on a high mountain to watch the wind and the sun. So Qin Shing thought of Lin Su. She could choose him and finally accompany him to this day, which was so rare and precious. It was his ancestor's grave that smoke was rising. Qin Shing was not adding insult to injury. He just wanted Zhang Mi to remember that she should not be calculative when it came to love. Kindness would be rewarded. Otherwise, all the calculations would eventually pay an unbearable price. The three of them ignored Zhang Mi. At this time, the class was about to start, so they walked into the teaching building of the School of Economics and Management. When they went upstairs, Qin Shing asked, "Wei Li, if it were you, what would you do?" Wei Li was a little stunned and said, "Such a woman is not worthy of pity. The one who is really pitiful is the boy in plain clothes. He did nothing wrong, and he should not be punished like this. If it were me, I would definitely find him to have a drink and then make it clear." Qin Shing was very satisfied with Wei Li's answer. At this time, Han Su said, "It's okay to be misunderstood, as long as I have a clear conscience. People live in life and meet so many different kinds of people. You can't let everyone understand you. It's not necessary. It's too tiring." Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. This was the different character of Wei Li and Han Su. During the two classes in the afternoon, Han Su was a little muddle-headed. Qin Shing did not know whether he was hurt because he really liked Zhang Mi, or he was so unhappy because he was deceived like this. But Qin Shing did not comfort him. He knew that Han Su's self-healing ability was stronger than anyone else's. The two classes were very fulfilling. The big boss, who had retired from the front line for many years, talked a lot about the economy and the reform of the system, which benefited Qin Shing a lot. The students were also actively raising their hands to speak and ask more in-depth questions. When the group was discussing, the old man, who was over 70 years old, slowly walked to Qin Shing's side. He patted Qin Shing's shoulder a few times and then smiled kindly. "Your name is Qin Shing?" Qin Shing was a little surprised, but then he smiled and nodded quickly. The old man did not say anything more. He just replied, "If you have any questions, you can come to me directly." Qin Shing did not know the deeper meaning of this sentence, so he continued to smile and nodded. Then the old man left. Finally, the class was over. Han Su's mood also eased. After all, he organized a meeting in the evening. If he was in a bad mood, naturally, everyone would not be interested. "Lao Qin, you really don't want to go with us?" Han Su forced a smile. He definitely wanted to drink tonight. He did not want to hide things in his heart. If he was unhappy, he would vent his dissatisfaction. This was life. Chang Baji and Hao Lei had already driven over and were waiting for him. Qin Shing smiled and said, "I have to go home first. I will contact you later." Since Qin Shing said so, Han Su did not continue to ask. On the way back to the Sihiyuan, Qin Shing asked casually, "How is it? Do you feel the breath of youth and the power of knowledge?" Hao Lei sighed and said, "Lao Qin, now I regret more and more that I did not study hard at that time. Why didn't you help me back then? I thought that I could still be saved, and I would not be so regretful now." Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "F***CKU. You only knew how to play every day. It's not like we didn't criticize you. The number of times you skipped classes was more than the number of times you went to class." Hao Lei said helplessly, "Forget it, I have no hope in this life. I hope my son can be admitted to Peking University and Tsinghua University one day." He was more or less disappointed in his heart. Nowadays, the society was not as it used to be. Daring to fight for a road to heaven could not help you. In this age, what was needed was talent and knowledge. If he did not follow Qin Sheng, perhaps he could only be an ordinary police station in Xi'an. Perhaps he could rely on the relationship of his family to be a small leader, but he would be mediocre for the rest of his life. Qin Sheng scolded him with a smile. You don't even have a girlfriend and you still want to have a son. You are an idiot. Qin Sheng said it unintentionally, but he regretted it immediately. After all, there was no solution for Hao Lei and Han Bing, which was really a headache. When Qin Sheng returned to the Sihiyuan had already prepared dinner. Nangong also came back today. Qin Sheng was somewhat curious about what this woman usually did, but he did not know how to ask. After asking Aunt Shui, Qin Sheng learned that the old man still would not come back for dinner today. Moreover, he also said that he would come back very late, which made Qin Sheng feel more and more anxious. There were only 4 people at the table. Except for answering Qin Sheng's questions occasionally, Nangong just lowered her head and ate at other times. After eating, she left quickly. Qin Sheng felt that the atmosphere was getting more and more strange. Why was everyone in a hurry, and only he, the idle man, had nothing to do? Chapter 466. Nausea. Qin Ran took Lin Su and Wu Han to work overtime in Shanghai. Chang Baji and Gong Sun also kept meeting guests and socializing in Beijing. Even Nangong seemed to be somewhat busy. The atmosphere of the whole Qin family was getting more and more depressed and tense. Only Qin Sheng, who was at a loss, had nothing to do and could not help at all. How could he not be agitated? He searched for rumors about the Chang'an Group on the internet. The general idea was that the domestic financial industry was becoming stricter and stricter. All kinds of private financial holding groups like the Chang'an Group felt insecure, especially the financial giants who had invested abroad in recent years in the form of domestic guarantee loans. They were condemned by experts as the vampires of domestic capital. They were suspected of transferring assets, causing a large loss of foreign exchange, and so on. Among them, the financial giants led by the Chang'an Group were the first to bear the brunt. In the past 2 years, there had been many powerful financial giants who had fallen from grace. From time to time, there would be all kinds of rumors flying around, such as who had been detained at the border, banned from leaving the country, and so on. Even if there were no incidents, they no longer dared to grow as unruly as before. Instead, they sold a large number of assets to hoard food for the winter. Now that the Chang'an system was in such a state, how could Qin Chang'an not be busy? Winter passed and spring came in the blink of an eye. The temperature had risen very quickly in the past few days. It felt like spring had only arrived a few days ago, but summer was already approaching. Therefore, compared to the cold winter, Beijing was more lively and prosperous at night. Many men and women were enjoying their nightlife, especially at the workers' sports bar street. When Qin Sheng found Han Su, he had already finished his meal in Kong Iji and moved to the workers' sports complex. He chose the most popular bar in the workers' sports complex, VNCS. It was said that the bar was opened by the old friend of a famous singer, who was considered to be doing well in Siju City. However, the bars in the workers' sports complex had similar businesses, and each had its own unique characteristic. After all, which boss who could open a nightclub in the workers' sports complex did not have some background? Besides, there were many shareholders, which was the most interesting part. Including Wei Li, there were a total of 5 people, including Han Su. They could be considered as classmates who got along well with each other. As for their identities, they were about the same. Qin Sheng brought Chang Baji and Hao Lei to the workers' sports complex. Chang Baji was not interested in this kind of place, so he had to wait for Qin Sheng in the car. Anyway, he could bear the loneliness. Qin Sheng only brought Hao Lei in. When Qin Sheng saw Han Su and Wei Li, these guys were already hugging very beautiful young ladies. They were of different ages and had different temperaments. Qin Sheng was used to this and did not find it strange. After all, nightclubs were all like this. Back when he was in Hangzhou, he was in charge of such an entertainment place. Seeing that Qin Shing had arrived, everyone stood up in a hurry to greet him. Han Su even walked over, put his arm around Qin Shing's shoulder, and said, "Lao Qin, give me face. I want to drink tonight. You drink more with me." A few beautiful ladies looked at Qin Shing with great interest. They had been in the nightclub for a long time, so they were better at reading people's expressions than anyone else. They could guess the identities of these people from the way they dressed and talked. For example, after Qin Shing arrived, they could tell from the attitude and eyes of these people that this man should be one of the highest status among all the people present. Qin Shing said happily, "Then I'm afraid that you will have to be carried out. As long as we don't go home until we are drunk, I am willing to be carried out." "Ha ha ha ha," Han Su said straightforwardly. Qin Shing greeted everyone one after another. Then he introduced Hao Lei to everyone without any taboo. He directly introduced him as his best friend and also his best friend. Everyone immediately became familiar with Hao Lei and called him brother. They did not think about Hao Lei's specific identity, thinking that he should be similar to Qin Shing. Everyone opened a bottle of whiskey. There were two beautiful ladies in professional clothes serving them the whole time. It was estimated that the wine should not be cheap. Han Su had always been generous. Han Su knew that Qin Shing did not have so many requirements, so he did not ask Qin Shing what he wanted to drink. Instead, he directly found the manager and gave a few instructions. When they just clinked the first glass of wine, the manager brought 7 or 8 beautiful young ladies. Each of them looked like they could go out and be a model. Of course, Qin Shing and Hao Lei knew what they meant. They were just playing along. If they insisted on their principles, it would only make everyone embarrassed. Therefore, Qin Shing and Hao Lei randomly picked a young lady. Qin Shing was quite beautiful and seemed to be young. After asking, he found out that she was a student of the Central Conservatory of Music in 1999. This made Qin Shing involuntarily sweat. They were already old men at the level of uncles. Qin Shing did not ask her why she did not go to school and so on. He was not her parents and did not need to teach her these principles. Moreover, if he said it, it would only make people despise and feel disgusted. She was already at this age and should be responsible for all her choices. Those who could hang out with Han Su all had similar characters and temperaments. Except for Wei Li, who was different, the atmosphere was quite harmonious. Everyone played games and drank wine. Everyone clinked their glasses with Qin Shing one after another. Of course, Qin Shing also responded to them one by one. If someone insisted on staring at Qin Shing and drinking, or if Qin Shing always lost in games and could not stand it anymore, Hao Lei naturally stood out to attract the firepower. He did not want Qin Shing to drink too much. They drank from 9:30 p.m. until the end. During this period, many acquaintances came over to propose a toast. They were all friends who were present. Some even directly brought several bottles of wine over. After all, they often went out to play and had long been used to these kinds of scenes. They were very tactful in dealing with different friends, introducing each other to each other, and so on. Qin Shing also met an acquaintance. It was Yin Hao, who had a good relationship with his sister and friends. This was the third time that Qin Shing met Yin Hao. Although they were not very familiar with each other, they seemed to be on good terms. After all, when they met for the first time, they were all drunk and drank a lot that night. Yin Hao was a relatively low-key playboy. He was a few years younger than Ma Weiyang and others, but he could be recognized. Obviously, he had some unknown bright spots. It did not occur to him that he would meet Qin Shing here. After looking at him again and confirming that it was Qin Shing, he ran over to find Qin Shing. Wei Li had met Yin Hao before, so he knew Yin Hao's identity. Yin Hao had some impression of Wei Li. He also remembered that Qin Shing did not give face to this man that day. How come they were together now? However, Yin Hao did not think so much. After all, it was Qin Shing's business. After greeting Qin Shing's friends and drinking, Yin Hao sat next to Qin Shing. He lit a cigarette and said, "When did you come back?" "I just came back yesterday. Old Master enrolled me in an advanced course at the School of Economics and Management of Tsinghua University before the Spring Festival. There are still 2 months left. It's the first day of classes after the Spring Festival, so I came out to drink with some classmates," Qin Shing said casually. Yin Hao was about the same age as him, so he did not feel restrained when talking to people like Fandaji. Yin Hao took the initiative to invite Qin Shing and said, "Haha, you are a good drinker. They may not be able to keep you company. Last time, we took turns to fight. Although we won, it was not an honorable victory. When will we drink again?" Qin Shing smiled and said, "Anytime." Yin Hao could not help laughing at Qin Shing's straightforwardness. He did not know what to say about Qin Shing's past. He did not know about it until later. Sometimes, when he thought about it, if Qin Shing had lived in Siju City all the time, if he still had such a temper, he would have achieved a lot. When will Sister Ran come back? When I saw Sister Ponytail 2 days ago, she kept nagging that if she did not come back, she would go to Shanghai. Sister Ponytail and Sister Ran grew up together, so none of us can compare with them. Although some people are already staying away from them, we never do that. So if you need any help, just tell me, Yin Hao said thoughtfully. So, if you need any help, just tell me. Qin Shing raised his glass and toasted Yin Hao. "Thank you. This glass of wine is to you on behalf of my sister." Yin Hao smiled and clinked his glass with Qin Shing. He drank up the wine. He liked this kind of atmosphere. The young lady next to them filled up their glasses in a hurry. She was sensible enough not to listen to their conversation. This was the rule, although they could not hear anything in such a noisy environment. "I have not finished the business in Shanghai yet. My sister will not come back for a while. If there is time, I will invite you to have a gathering," Qin Shing said with a smile. In fact, he was not qualified to do so. After all, they were all his sister's friends. But it was because of this relationship that Qin Shing was willing to get close to them. Yin Hao raised his glass again and said, "Okay, I will wait for you." At this time, Qin Shing pulled Hao Lei and clinked glasses with Yin Hao. He introduced Hao Lei to Yin Hao on purpose. The word "best friend" showed that Yin Hao knew their relationship was different from others. Yin Hao greeted them and left after drinking a glass of wine. His friends were still waiting for him. They were all rich playboys in Siju City. But they did not stay long and left. "Lao Qin, who is this guy?" Hao Lei asked casually, but he could tell that Qin Shing took it seriously. Qin Shing said honestly, "He is my sister's friend. I have met him a few times before. Our relationship is not bad." Hao Lei nodded silently and did not say much. It was enough to understand some things in his heart. Qin Shing and the others continued to drink, but they did not know that there were people at another table paying attention to them. This table was not as lively as the other tables. Apart from the 3 big men, there was only a beautiful woman accompanying them. They did not play games or compete for drinking. They just chatted and drank quietly at a very slow pace. "Lao Gu, do you know that man?" The man who was holding the beautiful woman in his arms squinted and said gently. The man was about 35 or 36 years old and looked a bit like a ruffian. The beautiful woman was not a young lady who hung around in a nightclub, but his confidant. The man who was called Lao Gu by the man stared at Qin Shing's table not far away and frowned. "Which one?" "The one with the shortest hair sitting in the middle," the man said casually. Lao Gu was confused. "Why, your friend?" "My friend." Upon hearing these words, the man laughed out loud and said, "Lao Gu, if I can be friends with him, I am afraid that my father will beat me to death." Lao Gu was even more confused. "What do you mean? Who is this guy?" "Qin Chang'an's son." The man did not deliberately mystify but gave the answer directly. After hearing this explanation, Lao Gu's face instantly became somewhat cold. He stared at Qin Shing and there was more or less some killing intent in his eyes. He said, "He has a son? Lao Gu, you don't know this, right? I will tell you slowly in the future. But it is rare for us to meet today. No matter what, we have to be disgusted." The man looked playful. Chapter 467. The second half started. He was not afraid of thieves stealing, but he was afraid of thieves remembering. In the past, as long as Qin Shing did not take the initiative to provoke anyone, he would not get into any trouble most of the time. That was because he only represented himself and did not involve other people's grievances. But now, after Qin Shing returned to the Qin family, he did not represent just himself anymore. He was Qin Chang'an's son and the successor of the Qin family. Therefore, he had a lot of enemies invisibly. Maybe Qin Shing did not know these things now. For example, today he was in a bad mood and came out to drink with Han Su and the others. Then, he met someone who knew him and had a grudge against the Qin family. Therefore, he was targeted for no reason. If Qin Shing found out about this, he would probably feel like King hell in his heart. However, this was not something that he could control. At this time, everyone was almost drunk. They were ready to play for a while, and then go to Gui Street for supper. At this time, the beautiful woman beside Han Su answered a phone call and left. The others did not care. After all, this was a normal situation. After a while, the young lady came back. Her expression changed slightly, and her eyes flickered, but no one noticed. This young lady seemed to be the kind of person who liked to play around. Her bright red lipstick was particularly eye-catching. She was wearing a spaghetti strap dress that revealed her not-so-impressive breasts. There was also a flower tattooed on her arm. It was just that Qin Shing could not recognize what kind of flower it was. Nowadays, which little girl did not have a tattoo? No wonder it was said that tattoo artists were the happiest people. Not long after the young lady sat down, a man, who was already slightly drunk, walked to their booth and shouted irritably, "Fan Fan, I was wondering why I couldn't find you tonight. It turns out that you're here." Fan Fan was the young lady who accompanied Han Su to drink. She said awkwardly, "Brother Dong, you drank too much." Being disturbed by the uninvited guest, the crowd was somewhat displeased. Moreover, they were almost done drinking. Someone had already stood up and said politely, "Brother, you drank too much." The man called Brother Dong directly shook off Qin Shing's classmate and said angrily, "Don't touch me. Do you know who I am?" It did not occur to Han Su that the melodramatic drama during the day would be played in the bar again at night. This made Han Su so angry that he almost lost control of his temper. He stood up, stared at Brother Dong and said, "I don't care who you are. I will count to 3. Get the F***ck out of here. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Instead of getting angry, Brother Dong laughed and said, "Yo, I haven't done anything to you yet. How dare you jump in? It's you who chose Fan Fan. Don't you know she's my woman? I think you don't want to live anymore." Han Su had been pampered since he was a child, and he liked to play around. He had seen all kinds of things in Tianjin. Tianjin was so close to Beijing, so he was very familiar with Beijing. He had never met such an arrogant person, so he directly picked up the bottle and started to drink without saying a word. Qin Shing held Han Su back in a hurry and said, "Hold on. If you have any problems, go out and solve them. Don't make trouble here. It's not a good influence and it's quite troublesome." At this time, Brother Dong's friend had arrived. The security guards of the bar also noticed the situation here. If they really wanted to fight, they would definitely stop them as soon as possible. Brother Dong's friend held him back and smiled apologetically. "Brothers, I'm really sorry. My buddy drank too much. Please forgive him. I apologize to you." After that, this guy directly picked up a glass of whiskey and drank it up, which could be regarded as an apology to everyone. Those who could enter the advanced class of the School of Economics and Management this time all had some family background. They had encountered this kind of thing many times. Although they did not want to make trouble, they were not afraid of it at all. So they had been holding back. If they really couldn't bear it anymore, they would have to bear the consequences when they were drunk. When Han Su was about to fight just now, the others were also ready. They came out to have fun together and needed to help each other more in the future. At this time, of course, they would not flinch. Fortunately, Qin Shing held Han Su back. Otherwise, they would have fought now. Although Brother Dong's friend accompanied them to drink and apologized, no one admitted it. In the end, it was Qin Shing who waved his hand to signal them to leave quickly. Don't be an eyesore here, in case they really fought later. Seeing this group of people's attitude, Brother Dong chattered incessantly, "You wait for me." Han Su really couldn't bear it anymore. He stood up again and rushed over. Qin Shing had no choice but to hold Han Su back again and persuade him. "You are a 30-year-old man. You still have no tolerance. If you are still angry when you wake up, you can vent your anger on him." Han Su thought about it carefully. He would be a super-rich second generation who would inherit billions of assets in the future. Why would he care about such a small role? In the end, he sat down while swearing. Qin Shing's way of making peace made some people think that Qin Shing was low-key, while others thought that Qin Shing was a coward. Qin Shing was too lazy to care about others' opinions. As long as he made up what he was doing, it would be fine. This little episode was quite disappointing for everyone. No matter how explosive the DJ's music was, it made people lose the mood to drink. The beautiful woman named Fanfan, who was beside Han Su, smiled nervously and said, "Brother Han, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Han Su really wanted to find a master to tell whether it was a bad day today. How could he encounter this kind of thing everywhere he went? It was really annoying. "Before I get angry, take the money and get out of here as far as you can." Although Qin Shing had persuaded Han Su had not vented his anger yet. Since the beauty was very insensible, Han Su could only vent his anger on her. Although Qin Shing managed to persuade Han Su, he had no choice but to vent his anger on her. Wei Li thought about it and took the initiative to take out his wallet and pay the tips of all the beautiful women who accompanied him to drink. Then he asked them to leave quickly. After all, it was just a small amount of money. They accepted Wei Li's favor. After the beautiful woman named Fanfan walked out of the booth with her many sisters, she let out a long sigh of relief, and a proud smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. The tips of several hundred yuan were not worth mentioning for her tonight's income. After all, she cooperated with them and put on a good show. However, those guests were still in the dark, and her sisters suffered because of them. Fanfan did not care about which big boss these guests had offended. When she thought of how the man surnamed Han had scolded her just now, she felt even less guilty. As for whether there would be any sequela later, she did not even think about it now. After the beautiful women left, it was finally completely quiet here. Wei Li eased the atmosphere and said, "Lao Han, don't be angry. It's just a small thing. Come on, let us drink with you." Qin Shing and Hao Lei also picked up their wine glasses. Everyone continued to drink, but the atmosphere was obviously not as lively as before. It was estimated that they would leave soon. In a booth not far away, the initiators of this farce witnessed the whole process. They didn't expect that there would be no fight. The other side was really tolerant. It shouldn't be. After all, with their status and background, how could they be afraid of trouble? The man who planned this farce reached out and touched the soft breasts of his confidant in his arms and sighed as he said, "Tut, tut, tut, they are really low-key. They can even tolerate this." The man called Lao Gu drank the Yamazaki whiskey produced in Japan and asked again, "Lao Shui, are you sure that he is really Qin Chang'an's son?" "Lao Gu, how can I lie to you about this kind of thing? You may not know, but I know better than anyone else that Qin Chang'an's son was taken away by the old master of the Qin family when he was young. There has been no news of him for so many years. Some time ago, he reunited with the Qin family. We just found out about it. The warmth of the beautiful women's breasts made the man called Lao Shui feel a little excited. He suppressed the desire in his heart and said slowly. Lao Gu completely ignored this. He sneered and said, I see. The old play the old, and we young play the young. Don't worry, tonight's thing is not over yet. This is only the first half. Although it did not reach the climax, the second half will not let you down. Lao Shui squinted his eyes and said playfully, as if everything was under his control. Although he did not know the background of the two men, Lao Gu and Lao Shui, it was obvious that they were not ordinary people since they could sit in the best card seats. Moreover, there were 4 bodyguards around to prevent anyone from approaching. Lao Gu was dressed very delicately. He wore a well-tailored, handmade suit, looking like a rich playboy. Coupled with the unique gold-rimmed glasses and the Lang men's watch that was revealed inadvertently, he said that he was not only rich but also had taste. Lao Shui's confidant had peeped at Lao Gu many times. After all, Lao Gu was more handsome than Lao Shui. However, Lao Shui was more masculine, especially in that aspect. Lao Gu heard Lao Shui's words and asked tentatively, Lao Shui, tell me the truth. This time, did your family add fuel to the fire in the matter of Qin Chang'an? After all, your family has a great influence in the media circle. Moreover, it was through the publicity. Lao Shui stared at Lao Gu with a faint smile. What Lao Gu said was true. Therefore, Lao Shui did not hide anything. He smiled and said, even if I said no, you won't believe it. Wise people would stop spreading rumors. However, if this rumor was added fuel to the fire by people with ulterior motives, no one could stop it. Even if it was fake, it would become true. Upon hearing this, Lao Gu smiled gently. The Xie family and the Qin family were the real enemies for generations. They had been fighting against each other for generations. In recent years, the Qin family had risen in power. However, the Shui family had not been idle. Since there was such a good opportunity, how could the Shui family not hit them when they were down? Moreover, they had many allies. As for the Gu family, since Qin Chang'an had forced his uncle to die in the past, the Gu family had been at odds with the Qin family ever since. The Gu family had been waiting for an opportunity to make the Qin family die miserably. This time, the opportunity had finally come. The tree longed for peace, but the wind would not stop. When the Qin family slightly showed signs of fatigue, more and more opponents showed up. Qin Xing had no way to escape at all. He could only face the enemies head-on. Chapter 468. Something is wrong. Lao Shui's confidant was not simple. She could be regarded as Lao Shui's half-think tank and assistant. Lao Shui would let her handle many things. Sometimes, even he felt inferior to her. After all, women were more meticulous, so Lao Shui doted on her very much. As long as it was within a reasonable range, he would satisfy her. She was also very smart. As long as old Shui called her, she would definitely appear in front of old Shui as soon as possible. Usually, she was responsible for old Shui's company and some things that could not be exposed. She was the one who planned and arranged the farce just now, including how to act. She didn't go straight to the target, but to create a diversion to achieve her goal. This way, she wouldn't be suspected, and she wouldn't be implicated in the end. Han Su was a regular customer of these nightclubs in Beijing. He spent most of his time in Beijing. Therefore, sometimes he said that Qin Xing was a local tyrant. He was really joking with Qin Xing. He was the real local tyrant in Beijing. On the way out of the booth, he met many friends who greeted him, just like when he came in. After everyone came out, they instantly sobered up. After all, they were already half drunk. Coupled with the lights, music, and the secretion of various hormones, it made them more and more delirious. It was not as comfortable as the cool breeze outside. The outside wasn't as lively as the inside. There were drunk men and women everywhere, staggering as they walked. The women were all dressed up like fairies, while the men were looking for their own prey. There were also many people waiting to pick up corpses. This was a well-known fact. Now everyone was very obedient to the rules, and it would be troublesome if they acted on impulse. Therefore, Han Su arranged 2 drivers in advance to drive them to eat, drink, and so on. Qin Shing did not take the same car with Han Su. After all, Chang Baji was still waiting here. On the way to Gui Street, Qin Shing asked casually, "Brother Lei, do you feel bored?" Hao Lei shook his head. "No, you think too much. In fact, it's okay with Han Su and the others. But I know that there will be too many boring occasions in the future. In the end, I will live the life I don't want to see the most." Qin Shing smiled bitterly. He wanted to drown his sorrows with alcohol, but he felt more depressed. He could only force himself not to be too anxious. Hao Lei did not know how to comfort Qin Shing. After all, what Qin Shing had experienced was far beyond what he had experienced, especially the contrast in his life during this period of time. "It's still better when we were in school. Other than studying, we didn't have to think so much every day, like secretly judging which class belle was the prettiest, secretly writing love letters to the goddess that we liked, secretly saving money to buy her gifts, and when we were free, we played basketball or games. TSK, I really miss those days," Hao Lei said faintly, hoping to use these things to ease Qin Shing's mood. After Hao Lei finished speaking, Qin Shing was in a much better mood. It was so good at that time. He did not let down the good times of his youth, nor did he let down those around him. After arriving at Gui Street, even at this hour, Hu Da's business was still very good. They randomly found a table, ate crayfish, drank beer, and continued to chat. Finally, they forgot the unhappiness brought by the little episode just now. As they chatted and laughed, their relationship became closer and closer. Qin Shing was no longer so unapproachable. He took the initiative to chat with several classmates about all kinds of interesting things. Although they did not call each other brothers, they could help each other in the future. After eating and drinking, they went home to sleep. As for whether the others had other activities, Qin Shing did not worry about it. As there was no parking space at the entrance of Huda, the 3 cars were parked on another road not far away. So they walked there, just in time to sober up and digest the food. When they were about to walk to the parking place, 7 or 8 tall and strong men suddenly rushed out of the 2 vans next to them and went straight to them. No matter how stupid they were, they knew what was going on. Obviously, they were ambushed. It was very likely that they were the group of people who had the conflict in Vingcs just now. Among them, except for Han Su, who often worked out and practiced boxing, the others were usually busy with work and had no time to exercise. In addition, their bodies were hollowed out by alcohol and women. If they really encountered a tough person, they would not be able to withstand a single blow, such as the situation in front of them. If they were in their local area, these people would go out with bodyguards. After all, no matter how much money they had to be alive to spend it. However, they did not make trouble because they were studying in Beijing. Moreover, today was just a class reunion. No one expected that there would be a conflict. Almost subconsciously, Wei Li and the others ran in the opposite direction. Beijing was the capital. There were patrolling police cars everywhere. As long as they ran far away, they would definitely be safe. They could settle the score later. However, Han Su did not run away. This time, Han Su was really irritated. He was really unlucky today. The continuous farces made him so angry that he wanted to vent his anger. Now was the time. At most, he would be beaten half to death. At that time, someone would naturally come forward to solve the problem. Perhaps Han Su had drunk too much, which was why he thought that way. Han Su did not run away. Of course, Qin Shing and Hao Lei would not run away either. First, Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were not afraid of this group of people in front of them. Second, Qin Sheng was thinking about the background of this group of people. Were they the group of people who had the conflict in Vingcs just now or his previous enemies? Before Qin Sheng came to his senses, Han Su directly rushed forward with the momentum of a real man who would not come back. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was really stupid. Therefore, Qin Sheng and Hao Lei also rushed forward. Otherwise, if Han Su fought with 7 or 8 people alone, the result would be obvious. He was not a martial artist like them, so he would definitely be injured. The parking place was not far from the crowd. Chang Baji was the first to find the movement here, so he got out of the car and rushed over without hesitation. The other 2 drivers also saw it. Or maybe Chang Baji had already rushed over. They did not think about anything at all and rushed over to help. At this time, Han Su, Qin Sheng, and Hao Lei had already encountered that group of people. What was interesting was that the target of this group of people was obviously not Han Su, because there was only one person to deal with Han Su. The others surrounded Qin Sheng. Anyone could see that there was something wrong. However, they might not have thought that Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were not ordinary at all, so they paid the price as soon as they met. Although Qin Sheng and Hao Lei were drunk, their skills were not bad at all, and they firmly suppressed everyone. On the other side, after Wei Li and the other 2 students ran for a distance, they found that Han Su, Qin Sheng, and Hao Lei not only did not run away, but also rushed forward, which made them quite shocked and gave them a headache. Wei Li realized that he had lost a chance, but he would definitely not make more mistakes, so he did not have time to consider the gains and losses. He turned around and ran back. At this time, he could not leave Han Su and Qin Sheng behind. Even if he was beaten to the point of hospitalization, he had to brace himself to fight. The other 2 students hesitated for a moment and finally rushed back. When Chang Baji and the 2 drivers arrived, Qin Sheng's side had an overwhelming advantage in this conflict, whether in terms of the number of people or strength. So the final result was easy to guess. This group of people all fell to the ground. Qin Sheng had already told Hao Lei to call the police, but the others were still venting their anger, especially Han Su, who continuously kicked the man who made him suffer a few punches, and the man screamed in pain. This group of people did not expect that the result would be like this. The other side told them that they only needed to deal with a few drunk men, and they could totally deal with them with 7 or 8 people, not to mention that they were all strong men. How could there be such powerful and ruthless people among them? If they had known in advance, they would definitely not have taken this job. Now it was too late to say anything. Tell me, who the hell ordered you to do this? Han Su kicked the man a few more times and asked angrily. Wei Li and the other 2 students were also asking the mastermind behind the scenes, so that they could return the favor. Otherwise, they would not be able to swallow their anger. However, no one answered at all, because the boss who knew the identity of the sugar daddy was not here at all. Moreover, even if the boss was here, he would definitely not reveal his identity. Qin Sheng squinted and said, "They are all a group of small fries. You can't get anything out of them." But he was full of doubts. If it was the group of people in the bar, why did this group of people target him instead of Han Su? If it was his enemies, based on the strength of his enemies and their understanding of him, they would definitely not send such a few small fries. So, who on earth was it? A classmate said angrily, "Damn it, it must be the group of people from Vingcs. Tomorrow we must find this bastard, and let him know what regret is." For this group of people, if it was in the past, it would not be difficult to find such a person in Beijing. After all, which one of them did not have connections and background? But this time it might be difficult. This guy had already gone out to hide from the limelight. Lao Shui's confidant did things meticulously. She would never let them find out. After all, she knew Qin Sheng's background. At this time, Wei Li walked to Qin Shing's side and said, "Just now we were a little flustered. After all, everyone was half drunk. So we were afraid that it was them who attacked us. We made a fool of ourselves." Qin Shing patted Wei Li on the shoulder and said, "You think too much. Anyone would have done the same thing at the first time. We didn't leave because we had absolute confidence to face them." Wei Li's words were not only for him but also for the other two classmates. Otherwise, they would be looked down upon by Han Su and Qin Shing. In this way, everyone would feel uncomfortable. After hearing Qin Shing's words, Wei Li was relieved. In just a few minutes, the nearest 2 patrol police cars had arrived. Not long after, 2 more police cars arrived. Whether it was Qin Shing's group or this group of people, they were all taken to the branch office. However, on the way, whether it was Qin Shing or the others, they had secretly called their acquaintances, so that they could avoid a lot of trouble. The leader on duty in the branch office received several calls in a short period of time. They were all leaders of various systems, which made him somewhat uneasy. He had not encountered such a situation for a long time, but he did not feel strange. After all, most people in Siju City were officials. After Qin Shing and the others arrived, they were politely taken to the conference room. After a simple statement, they all came out of the branch office. It did not take too long. Chapter 469. Calm down. First, Qin Shing was confused, but he still couldn't figure it out. After all, there were too few clues. Unless he could find the drunk man in VACS, he would not know the truth. It was already 1:30. Qin Shing didn't want to think about it anymore. He just wanted to go back and have a rest. He was a bit drunk after 2 rounds of drinking. After all, he couldn't really stay sober. Something fishy happened tonight. On the way back to the alley in Dengshiku, Hao Lei said. Even he could tell something was wrong, so he knew Qin Shing could. Chang Baji was confused. What fishy? As a result, Hao Lei told him the ins and outs of the whole thing so that Chang Baji, a sly old fox, could analyze it and come to a conclusion. Both Hao Lei and Chang Baji knew that Qin Shing's current situation was more dangerous than before. Although he was not afraid of those enemies in the past, they were still there. They always wanted to kill Qin Shing. At the same time, after Qin Shing returned to the Qin family, he had to be on guard against those unknown enemies. Chang Baji frowned and said, "It seems that we have to be careful. We can't be careless just because we are in Beijing. Prevention is better than cure." Qin Shing didn't say anything. No matter what happened tonight was really against him, or he was just overthinking, as long as they were enemies, there would be a day when they would confront them. Chang Baji and Hao Lei walked Qin Shing to the Qin family's Sihiyuan at the entrance of Dengshiku and left. Their house was not far from here, and it was only a few minutes' walk. Nangong was already looking for a house with a nice environment. They could not stay in a hotel all the time. Nangong also came back tonight. She had been waiting for Qin Shing in the yard. When she heard the noise outside, she came out and met Qin Shing in the front yard. Nangong looked at Qin Shing in the dim light. She was disgusted by the smell of alcohol. Anyway, she had never been nice to Qin Shing. "Old man is back?" Qin Shing asked before Nangong said anything. Nangong frowned and said, "He came back at 11 o'clock. He has been waiting for you until now. Don't you know that my foster father is very tired recently? Why can't he come back earlier and drink?" Nangong scolded Qin Shing. She almost said that he was still in the mood to drink when his home was in such a mess. He couldn't help at all. Could he not make trouble? Nangong didn't say it in the end because it was too hurtful. She was afraid that her foster father would blame her. Nangong's words made Qin Shing feel quite guilty. He had thought that the old man would come back late as usual. That was why he went to drink with Han Su. It did not occur to him that the old man would come back so early. He frowned as he asked, "Why didn't you call me?" Humph. Nangong did not answer this question. He turned around and walked directly to the middle court. Since his foster father did not allow him to call Qin Sheng, he had been waiting in the side hall. Qin Sheng's words. He turned and went into Nangong. Qin Li. 2-inch Chang. Qin Sheng and Nangong followed Nangong into the side hall. Before they entered the door, they heard Qin Chang'an's reprimand. Gongsun, who was standing not far away from them, hurriedly said something to them. Qin Sheng and Nangong had no choice but to walk in quietly. Qin Chang'an had already noticed that Qin Sheng was back. He casually said a few words to his subordinate on the other side of the phone and hung up the phone. After that, he walked over slowly. The gloomy look on his face instantly turned into a spring breeze. He smiled and said, "You are back." Naturally, Qin Chang'an would be very strict with Qin Sheng on certain matters. However, nowadays, he smiled a lot more in his daily life. He was no longer so dignified and did not give Qin Sheng any more pressure. Nangong and Qin Sheng sat on the sofa next to them. Qin Chang'an sat opposite them and asked, "I heard from Gongsun that you got into trouble tonight? What happened? Why are you in the police station?" Qin Sheng did not want Qin Chang'an to worry about him. Otherwise, it would only make him more and more tired. Consequently, he replied, "Just a small matter. Today, I went out with a few classmates to have a meal. I ran into a group of drunk people who picked on me. Then there was a small conflict." If it was just a small conflict, Qin Chang'an knew that Qin Sheng's martial arts skills would not be a problem. Consequently, he did not ask any more questions. Instead, he went straight to the point. "I know you have been worried about the Lin family in Xi'an. I have smoothed things over through a few friends. The Supreme Court reopened the case yesterday, and the High Court in Xi'an will reopen it." Upon hearing the news, Qin Sheng said excitedly, "Really? Does that mean Uncle Lin can come out?" Qin Chang'an said slowly, "I have asked about the ins and outs of this case. I have also consulted legal experts and friends in the Supreme Court. At that time, your Uncle Lin's opponent had some connections in the province. Moreover, that leader had a bright future, so he lost. There must be some benefits involved. Now that the leader has been sent to prison, his opponent is also in danger. In addition, I know the leader in charge of the government. There should be no big problem," Qin Chang'an said slowly. There were too many such unjust and false cases. However, many things had been sealed in the coffin. If there was no relationship or pressure, it would be quite difficult to reopen the case. Moreover, some of the parties had chosen to keep the peace. However, this time, the Lin family met Qin Chang'an, so it could be considered lucky. After all, the Lin family had done Qin Sheng a favor. If it were someone else, Qin Chang'an would not get involved easily. After all, there would be no benefits. Since Qin Chang'an had said it so clearly, Qin Sheng naturally understood. He wanted to say thank you subconsciously, but he did not know how to say it. He looked quite embarrassed. Qin Chang'an turned and asked, "How is your schedule this month?" "There are 2 days of classes every week. In the last month, there may be more classes, such as going to enterprises for inspection and so on." Qin Sheng thought that Qin Chang'an wanted to ask about his situation in Tsinghua University. In fact, it was not so. In the beginning, Qin Chang'an had asked him to go to this advanced course for other reasons. Another reason was to let Qin Sheng feel what peers at the same level were like. This would help Qin Sheng to carry out his work quickly after entering the group in the future. Qin Chang'an nodded silently and said, "Since the schedule is not very tight, you can go to Xi'an to keep an eye on it when you are free. No matter how smooth things are, there will be twists and turns, not to mention this kind of thing. When people are cornered, they will do something desperate." Qin Sheng finally understood what Qin Chang'an meant. He said thoughtfully, "Well, after tomorrow's class, I will try to go back to Xi'an the day after tomorrow." Qin Chang'an did not drink tonight. He just met some old friends, so he kept sober. During the period of waiting for Qin Sheng to come back, he had been dealing with work, so he was somewhat tired. Qin Chang'an waved his hand and said, "If there is nothing else, you can go to rest. It is late." He still had some things to deal with. Nangong stood up in a hurry and said, "Foster father, you should rest early." Qin Chang'an said casually, "Yezi, you have worked hard during this period. You should pay more attention to the company's affairs." He had spent a lot of effort to cultivate Nangong. At least he was satisfied with the current Nangong. No matter what he was responsible for, he could handle it with ease. Nangong said cleverly, "Foster father, this is what I should do." Qin Shing did not stand up. He thought it was rare to have such an opportunity, so he should talk about Uncle Jiang. Otherwise, with the old man's busy state recently, he did not know when he would find another opportunity. Otherwise, Qin would urge him again. Qin Shing finally opened his mouth and said, "Well, I have something to tell you." Qin Chang'an was a little surprised and said, "Oh, what is it?" Qin Shing hesitated for a moment and said, "When I was in Shanghai, whether it was studying or working, Uncle Jiang helped me a lot. Later, he encountered some trouble and was forced to hide abroad. I want to ask if there is any change in Uncle Jiang's situation." After saying this, Qin Shing let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, he finally said it. As for the result, it would be up to the old man's answer. Nangong was a little angry. At this time, what couldn't he say tomorrow? Others were more important than foster father's health. He was your biological father. If he fell, how many people would be in trouble? Qin Chang'an was not surprised at all that Qin Shing would say this. He was not angry either. He said lightly, "I know you will ask me about this sooner or later." Qin Shing said thoughtfully, "I don't want to owe too many favors to others. Otherwise, I will always feel suffocated. If it is troublesome, then forget it." Qin Chang'an said in a low voice, "Jiang Xianbang's situation is not as simple as the Lin family's. As far as I know, he is involved in a lot of things. But you don't have to worry too much. Since Jiang Xianbang could hide abroad successfully, it means that he is not an abandoned chess piece. Someone is still willing to protect him." After hearing this, Qin Shing felt that it was reasonable. Nowadays, when the policy against overseas refugees was getting stricter and stricter, Uncle Jiang could still live freely. In fact, it showed that his trouble was not as dangerous as he had imagined. But the old man also said that Uncle Jiang's situation was more complicated than the Lin family's. Qin Shing was a little anxious and asked directly, "So what do you mean?" Qin Chang'an said honestly, "Take it easy first. At least, I have to figure out what exactly is going on, such as who is involved and what kind of things are involved. Only then will I dare to make a decision. If it is too troublesome, I probably won't help you. I hope you can understand." Qin Shing understood the old man. Although he was very disappointed, he still had some hope. He said lightly, "Okay, I got it." After talking about the last thing, Qin Shing got up to go to class. It seemed that he had to have a good talk with Uncle Jiang. At least he had to figure out what was going on first so that he could have a plan. However, he was afraid that Qin might be disappointed. Qin Shing could not help it. After all, he was not Qin Chang'an. If one day he sat in Qin Chang'an's position and encountered Uncle Jiang's problem, of course he would do his best to help. Qin Shing and Nangong lived upstairs on the left side, and Qin Rant's room was in the middle. When they walked to the door, Nangong was very dissatisfied. "I hope that you will try your best not to bother foster father. He is tired enough. When you are in his position, you will know how much pressure it is. Thank you." After saying that, Nangong directly walked into the room and closed the door with a bang. Chapter 470. Chapter 469 of the WAR Father and Son, Sister and Brother. If Qin Shing had not recognized the old man and asked him to evaluate him, He might have only been able to tell from the gossip that the old man was a real financial capital tycoon and an ambitious and ruthless person who wandered in both the political and business circles. However, ever since he knew that this ambitious and ruthless man was his biological father, from the bits and pieces he had seen and observed him from a close distance, Qin Shing could tell that this man was not as exaggerated as the rumors said. Sometimes, he was also an ordinary man and an ordinary father. He also had white hair and wrinkles, and he could still force a smile on his face when he was exhausted in the middle of the night. It had always been difficult for Qin Shing to figure out the old man's mind, especially the things that the old man had done to him 2 years ago before they had reconciled with each other. His attitude towards him after he came back was somewhat different and complicated. Qin Shing did not know what the old man was like when he was outside, so he could not come to a conclusion. However, there were some things that Qin Shing could guess. That was, the old man loved his beautiful mother deeply. Otherwise, he would not have remarried all these years. With his status, he could get all kinds of women, not to mention that he had already fallen out with his grandmother. He was still deeply in love with his sister, who always made him angry and went against him. Otherwise, he would have never brought those so-called confidants to his sister, and he would not have put pressure on her even though she was already in her 30s. Now, Qin Shing knew that he loved himself deeply, and he also felt a father's guilt for his son. Qin Shing knew that the old man had been very tired these years. He did not know how many people, except for his sister and a few others, really cared about him, not because of his identity. However, Qin Shing thought later, as long as they cared about the old man, that was enough. Therefore, no matter how Nangong quarreled with him, Qin Shing would not be angry, because Nangong was one of the few people who really cared about the old man. Although Qin Chang'an slept very late, he still got up very early in the morning. This should be the most tacit understanding between the father and the son. They almost never slept in. After Qin Shing went downstairs and met the old man who was doing morning exercises in the yard, the old man whispered, "Go jogging with me. Then I'll change my clothes." Qin Shing did not refuse. No matter what he did, the most important thing was to keep his body healthy. Only with a healthy body could he have unlimited possibilities. Therefore, Qin Shing had been exercising all these years. Just like when his grandfather was old, he would insist on going out for a walk every day. Although Grandpa's life was full of twists and turns, he was never sick or in pain. In the end, he passed away safely. Qin Chang'an was already waiting at the door. The bodyguards of the Qin family also changed into plain clothes and went out. They scattered on the fixed route where Qin Chang'an ran, maintaining absolute safety and control. Naturally, Qin Shing's physical condition was much better than the old man's. This had nothing to do with his youth. After all, the old man was busy with work. Even if he maintained the good habit of exercising, he could not be as free as Qin Shing. Therefore, Qin Shing ran very slowly, following the old man's rhythm. The old man and the young man did not say anything. They just ran forward around the alley. The Qin family's bodyguards followed them 10 meters in front and behind them. There were also a few bodyguards scattered on the road. They were more worried about Qin Chang'an's safety than anyone else. There were many old people jogging in the alley. After all, unlike the alley where Qin Shing's was relatively quiet, most of the old Beijing's alleys were quite lively. In the end, they chose an ordinary roadside breakfast shop for breakfast, which was not far from the Qin family's alley. Bean milk and fried dough sticks were old Beijing's favorite, and also Qin Chang'an's favorite. Although Qin Shing preferred tofu pudding, he could eat with the old man today. Obviously, Qin Chang'an came to this shop often. Otherwise, the boss would not know him. Qin Shing thought of the day when his sister took him to the old house to eat bean milk and fried dough stick. The boss also knew them. Then he understood more or less. Jogging together and eating breakfast together. The scene of the father and son today was quite warm. Qin Chang'an asked a series of questions. I haven't asked you how you're doing in the Tsinghua University advanced course. Can you keep up with the pace there? How are you getting along with your classmates? Qin Xing drank a mouthful of soybean milk. Basically, the people in the shop were old men and women. Young people seldom came out for breakfast at this time. They either hurried to work or were still sleeping. Qin Xing said honestly, "Well, maybe it's the first time I've been exposed to this kind of learning. It's quite fresh. The professors and the guests talked a lot, and I learned a lot from chatting with my classmates. Anyway, it's not bad." He had made a lot of notes, so he learned a lot. Qin Chang'an nodded silently and said, "That's good. Originally, I planned to let you enter the group directly. But after thinking about it, I decided to let you take your time. Coincidentally, my friend told me about this advanced course, so I let you go there. As for how much you can learn, it mainly depends on your own ability. To put it bluntly, those who could enter this advanced course were all from families with billions of assets. To put it bluntly, it's not a lot. After all, nowadays there are many people with billions of assets, but it's not a small amount either. You're different from them. They've been trained as successors since childhood. Influenced by their families, they're naturally different from most young people. I don't want you to be like them. I just want you to see what such young people are like, so that you can deal with such young people in the future." Qin Xing was somewhat surprised. He didn't expect the old man to let him go to Tsinghua University advanced course for such a reason. In the past he just thought that he could learn something, so that he could enter the group in the shortest time, and then make friends and so on. Qin Xing said thoughtfully, "I see." Of course, Qin Chang'an knew what Qin Xing was thinking about. He smiled and said, "The Qin family has been operating in Suzhou City for so many years. Even if you want to make friends, it's not them, but the top group. Moreover, as long as you can inherit the resources of the Qin family, it's enough for you to continue to move forward in the future." Qin Chang'an didn't know why, before the accident this time, he didn't intend to tell Qin Xing these things. He just wanted Qin Xing to stay in this environment quietly for 2 years, and naturally understand a lot of things slowly. At that time, he would get twice the result with half the effort if he talked about a lot of things. But now, time did not allow him to do this, so he could only change the way. As for how much Qin Xing understood and absorbed, he didn't care. Qin Xing had this feeling since last night. It seemed that after coming back from Shanghai, the old man talked a lot more than before. In the past, they didn't seem to talk much, but now the old man always took the initiative to chat with him. "I'll try my best." Qin Xing had a lot of feelings in his heart, but he tried to keep calm. Qin Chang'an felt that he had said too much, so he smiled gently and said, "Let's not talk so much, in case you're under too much pressure. Have a clear conscience and do what you can. Hurry up and eat, I have a few meetings later. Have a clear conscience and do what you can, do what you can, and do what you can." This sentence seemed simple, but it made Qin Xing feel too much. Could it really be like this? Qin Xing didn't know how high his grandfather had stood in his life, but the mysterious veil had been gradually lifted, and he was more and more shocked. Especially such a legendary old man, who could finally die unknown and hide in Zhongnan Mountains. What kind of spiritual world did he have? As for the old man, his achievements were there, and everyone could see his height. So when it came to Qin Xing, the grandson and the son, the pressure would be greater and greater. He could only let the Qin family continue to move forward, not go downhill. After breakfast, he went back to the Sihiyuan. The others had already had breakfast, and Nangong had gone out. After taking a shower and changing clothes, Qin Chang'an set off for the Chang'an Financial Center on Jianwei Street. Inexplicably, Qin Xing missed his sister a little, so he called his sister. The call was picked up very quickly. It was the first time that Qin Xing called his sister since he came back. "My silly brother, why did you call me so early in the morning?" Qin Ran, who was sitting in the office, laughed. It was a new day, and the sun was still bright, but there were still many things to do. Qin Ran had worked overtime for a week, and the dark circles under her eyes were a little serious. Wu Han and Lin Su felt sorry for her. Qin Xing said gently, "Sister, you've worked hard these years." Qin Ran was stunned for a moment by Qin Xing's unexpected words, and then her eyes turned red. She didn't know what had happened, so that her silly brother called her early in the morning and said such words, but she knew that her brother cared about her. "Silly brother, what's wrong?" Qin Ran adjusted her emotions and said with a smile. Qin Xing smiled awkwardly and said, "Nothing, I just miss you. I'm afraid that you're too tired to be alone in Shanghai, so I called you. Sister, no matter how busy or tired you are, take care of yourself. You'll have me in the future. You're not alone." Qin Ran bit her lip and said, "I know." Qin Xing's mood suddenly fluctuated, but he didn't want to say too many emotional words, so he could only say in a hurry, "Sister, I won't disturb your work anymore. I'm hanging up. I'll wait for you to come back." Qin Ran chuckled and said, "Okay, silly brother. I'm not in Beijing. You need to take care of yourself and our father." Qin Xing just said, "Okay, silly brother. I'm not in Beijing. You need to take care of yourself and our father." Over there, Qin Xing was still holding the phone in a daze. After a while, Wu Han and Lin Su walked into the office. Seeing Qin Ran standing in front of the window in a daze, they were more or less curious, so they woke Qin Ran up. On the way to Tsinghua University, Chang Baji and Hao Lei were still talking about what had happened last night, but Qin Xing was a little absent-minded. All of a sudden, he was somewhat eager to enter the group as soon as possible, and then gradually adapt to the environment and take over the work, so that he could take up the responsibility as soon as possible. In this way, the old man and his sister would not be so tired. After arriving at the School of Economics and Management, Chang Baji and Hao Lei continued to join the classes. Chang Baji liked to major in humanities, while Hao Lei was willing to listen to anything as long as it was interesting, regardless of whether he could understand it or not. When Qin Xing walked into the big classroom, Han Su and Wei Li's group of people from last night had already arrived, and they were talking about what had happened last night. When Qin Xing walked over, he got the news that the man from Vice who deliberately made trouble last night had disappeared. Chapter 471. Going against the current last night was originally Han Su's plan. What happened in the end almost made them suffer losses. Of course, Han Su was very unhappy. It had nothing to do with his reputation, so he sent someone to find that man overnight. That man was obviously a regular at VNCS, and he also knew Little B. It should not be difficult to find him, but it turned out to be contrary to his wishes. Disappeared. A classmate who went with them last night frowned when he heard the news. His name was Su Yang, and he came from Shenzhen. His father was a famous entrepreneur in Shenzhen, famous for the non-ferrous metal trade. He was older than Qin Xing and the others, but he was very kind and low-key. Han Su said thoughtfully, "Well, disappeared. I sent someone to look for him overnight, but they couldn't find him, including his home and the places he frequented. Even his mobile phone has been turned off. We are still looking for him." "It's a little abnormal," Wei Li said calmly. Another classmate from Jiangsu asked, "Lao Han, what's the news from the branch office?" "So far, we still haven't found anything. They just said that they hit the wrong person and it was a misunderstanding," Han Su said truthfully. "Those people should be just small fries, and they must have been warned beforehand. He was afraid that they would not get any news." Su Yang snorted and said, "These guys just need to be taught a lesson. If they don't say anything, the police can't do anything to them. Damn it, we must vent our anger. If it weren't for Lao Qin and his friends, we would all have been injured last night." Speaking of this, they all thanked Qin Xing. Qin Xing responded politely, still thinking about what happened last night. Although it was just a small conflict, it was obvious that there was a thorough plan. When they come out, I will find someone to teach them a lesson. I don't believe that I can't find out the mastermind. Do they really think that I, Han-Su, am easy to bully? Why don't they ask around? Han-Su said indignantly. Obviously, he would never give up without a result. Wei Li said casually, Lao Han, why do I feel that what happened last night is like a trap? Do you want to rethink it? Did someone deliberately disgust you? After Wei Li's reminder, everyone could not help but look at each other. Qin Shing also said, Wei Li is right. Last night, I felt that the whole process was too strange. Today's ending confirmed my guess. Han-Su, you can think carefully. Who did you offend recently? Han-Su thought for a moment and said, I'll call home to ask later. At least, Qin Shing did not have time to worry about it anymore. Maybe he was really thinking too much. These people came for Han-Su. Anyway, the truth would come to light sooner or later. There were only 2 days of classes this week, which would be over after today. Qin Shing had booked a plane ticket back to Xi'an and informed Auntie Wang and Xinxin in advance. Xinxin was in the 2nd semester of her junior year. She had a lot of classes, so she could only with a few days off. Before the spring festival, Qin Shing had asked Auntie Wang to sort out all the relevant materials and sent them directly to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. After Qin Chang'an had read all of them, he had asked many friends for advice and suggestions. That was why he had a well-thought-out plan in the end. If it were not for Qin Chang'an's relationship, for most people, this matter would have been very difficult to deal with. There were many cases in reality. After the 2 classes were over, Han-Su insisted on treating everyone to lunch as an apology. He said that he had shocked everyone last night and wanted to calm them down at noon. Although everyone said that it was just a small matter, Han-Su insisted. Qin Shing had no choice. However, before they walked out of the classroom, Qin Shing received a call, which surprised him, because it was from Song Ruyu. Song Ruyu said that she happened to come to Tsinghua University for business today, and happened to be in the School of Economics and Management. She called Qin Shing to see if he was in Tsinghua University. Knowing that Qin Shing had just finished class and was going to have lunch, Song Ruyu took the initiative to invite him to lunch, saying that she wanted to thank him for taking care of them in Shanghai. Since Song Ruyu had already said it, Qin Shing did not refuse, so he decisively abandoned Han-Su and his friends. Han-Su and his friends did not take it seriously. After all, Qin Shing's friends came to him. Song Ruyu was waiting for Qin Shing downstairs of the School of Economics and Management. When Qin Shing came out with Han-Su, Wei Li, and the others, Song Ruyu stood under the shade of a tree and waved to Qin Shing with a smile. Han-Su, Wei Li, and the others immediately understood why Qin Shing abandoned them. It turned out that he was a beautiful friend. They all cursed Qin Shing for valuing his girlfriend over his friends, but Qin Shing did not care about them. As they approached, even though they had seen countless beauties, they were still stunned by Song Ruyu's beauty, especially her aloof temperament. They greeted Song Ruyu with a smile. Lao Qin, why don't you introduce her to us? Su Yang joked with a smile. Qin Shing said casually, my friend Song Ruyu. Hello. Song Ruyu greeted them generously. They introduced themselves one after another. Han-Su said happily, finally, we see her. Lao Qin, you are not a good person. Are you afraid that we will steal her? Qin Shing laughed and scolded, F***ck off. Su Yang said playfully, Lao Qin, don't say that she is not your girlfriend. If she is not your girlfriend, we will have a chance. Hearing this, Qin Shing replied, Su Yang, don't have any ideas. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it. Don't come to me for help at that time. Song Ruyu did not know what Qin Shing meant. She stared at Qin Shing in confusion. If she knew that Qin Shing meant that this beautiful woman's brother was not easy to deal with, she would probably not know whether to laugh or cry. They did not continue to be the third wheel. After chatting for a while, they left. Song Ryu and Qin Sheng walked side by side on the campus, attracting many people's attention. Of course, Song Ryu was more eye-catching. Song Ryu said casually, "Your classmates are quite interesting." Qin Sheng said happily, "They are a group of rich playboys. Their flirting skills are better than anyone else. Don't be fooled by their hypocritical appearance." "What about your flirting skills?" Song Ryu asked deliberately. Qin Sheng coughed awkwardly. He almost said that he did not have any flirting skills. He was always flirted with by girls. However, Song Ryu was so direct that Qin Sheng did not know how to answer. "I was just kidding. Look at how scared you are." Song Ryu covered her mouth and smiled. "Okay, I will stop teasing you. What do you want to eat? But the premise is that you can't choose something too expensive. I am not as rich as you." Qin Sheng was speechless as he said, "You're not sincere at all. You don't even give me a chance to rip you off. Forget it. Fortunately, I'm not picky. I'll let you off this time." In the end, Song Ryu treated Qin Sheng to a bowl of hot and sour noodles. When they passed by the entrance of the hot and sour noodles, Song Ryu could not walk anymore. She said in a low voice, "I haven't eaten hot and sour noodles for a long time." Of course, Qin Sheng knew what Song Ryu was thinking. After all, when they were in Shanghai, he knew that Song Ryu did not like those formal cuisines. Instead, she preferred all kinds of snacks and so on. Therefore, Qin Sheng could only say, "Hot and sour noodles. I will treat you this time. Next time, you can treat me to a good meal." Song Ryu agreed without hesitation. Okay. The hot and sour noodle restaurant was full of students from nearby universities. The food there must be delicious. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so crowded. Song Ryu naturally became the center of attention as soon as she entered. After all, it was quite eye-catching to see such a beautiful woman eating hot and sour noodle. Song Ryu asked casually, "How is Uncle Qin recently?" Qin Sheng's expression changed slightly. He knew that Song Ryu was not an ordinary woman. On the contrary, she was smarter than most women. Her intelligence was wisdom, not petty tricks. Therefore, her words obviously had other meanings. Qin Sheng said honestly, "Very busy. I come back late every night." Song Ryu said thoughtfully, "My grandfather said that Uncle Song has experienced a lot of ups and downs. This time, he will get through it safely. Therefore, these difficulties are only temporary." Others might have said this to comfort Qin Sheng, but Qin Sheng knew that Song Ryu's words might have other meanings. Qin Sheng guessed that she might be saying that this time the situation was not as serious as he had imagined. Suddenly, Qin Sheng felt that he could say something to Song Ryu. He did not know why he had this feeling. After all, they had not known each other for a long time. Qin Sheng complained, "Ryu, everyone told me that the Qin family is in trouble. Everyone is busy, but I can't do anything to help them. This kind of feeling makes me very uncomfortable, although I know that I can't do anything to help them. If it were you, what would you do?" Qin Sheng complained. Song Ryu could tell from Qin Sheng's eyes that he had been worried about this for a long time. After thinking for a while, she said, "Since you know that you can't do anything to help, why don't you just do what you should do? If you need help, I think Uncle Qin will definitely tell you. After all, you are his son." Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Alas, I feel somewhat helpless. I don't like this feeling." Song Ryu said calmly, "I have seen a lot of rich playboys. Some are unrestrained, some are mediocre, and some are very sophisticated. But none of them can calm down. Young people are impatient. They say that young people are always like this. In fact, at times like this, you should go against the current to overcome all the obstacles in your heart. Calm down and try to enrich yourself. When the day comes that you are really needed, you can stand up without hesitation. Unlike now, you can only fall into contradictions and make people worry about you." When Qin Sheng heard these words, he seemed to be enlightened all of a sudden. However, he still could not find the key. Qin Sheng said in distress, I always want to calm down, but too many things have happened recently. The more I want to calm down, the more upset I am. Song Ryu chuckled and said, Sometimes when I am annoyed, I stand on the busiest street and feel the people around me. I observe everyone's happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy and listen to their gossip. Finally, my heart slowly calms down. Can you give it a try? Does it work? Qin Sheng asked curiously. Song Ryu smiled bitterly and said, It works for me, but I don't know about you. Try it first. Qin Sheng nodded. Chapter 472. Sorry. Song Ryu was supposed to treat Qin Sheng to lunch, but Qin Sheng treated Song Ryu in the end. Song Ryu was not polite at all. Although it was just a bowl of hot and sour noodles, she would only treat Qin Sheng like a friend. After lunch, Song Ryu left Tsinghua University and went back to her unit to continue working. As a think tank, her unit was under great pressure. After all, every policy would affect millions of ordinary people. Therefore, ordinary people did not dare to go there. Qin Sheng had nothing to do, so he wandered around the campus of Tsinghua University. He did not go to Han Su and Wei Li, nor did he contact Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Although Qin Sheng had been attending classes in Tsinghua University for a long time, he had not visited this top university in the country. It was said that there were many interesting places. Anyway, he was free now. In the end, Qin Sheng was tired, so he sat on a bench beside a main road and observed the passers-by, feeling their happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy, listening to their gossip. It was a wonderful feeling, as if he was peeping into everyone's heart. In the end, Qin Sheng's heart really calmed down. There were 2 classes in the afternoon. As soon as Qin Sheng arrived at the classroom, he was surrounded by Han Su, Wei Li, and a few others. Maybe it was because of what had happened last night that they got closer to each other. So they dared to joke around. Lao Qin, tell us, how did you get that beauty? No wonder you are not interested in those vulgar girls. It's because you have such a beautiful girlfriend, Han Su said happily. This guy had been playing around with girls for so many years, so he was most interested in this kind of thing. Qin Sheng was speechless. I have already said that she is just my friend, not my girlfriend. I will let you meet my girlfriend when there is a chance. I don't believe it, unless your girlfriend is more beautiful than this beauty. Su Yang curled his lips and said. Luo Jing from Jiangsu laughed and said, We just said that if she is not your girlfriend, we will not be polite. Look at how jealous you are. Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, I am kind enough to remind you that her brother is not simple. If you are interested, you can ask about the name Song Husheng. I think I don't need to tell you what will happen next. Song Husheng? Han Su murmured to himself, Why does this name sound so familiar? Luo Jing and Su Yang also said thoughtfully, I seem to have heard it from my friends in Siju City, but I don't know the details. Only Wei Li, who often hung out in the social circles of Siju City, changed his expression instantly when he heard this name. The name Song Husheng was a well-known one. He had heard many of his friends in Beijing mention him, but they were simply not worthy of him. This beauty's brother was Song Husheng, so this beauty was obviously also a member of the Song family. No wonder Qin Sheng said that. So Wei Li echoed, Old Qin is right. If you don't want to die, don't have any ideas about this beauty. Otherwise, it will be too late for regret. How? Qin said. How to Li to Wei. Sheng said Wei and Wei Li. Sheng is 1 Qin Sheng, to Qin, 2 to 1. Sheng 2 is, how 1, how. After a few jokes they stopped talking about this topic. Qin Sheng had no problem with it. After all, everyone loved beauty. Otherwise, why would people abandon their country for a beauty? After the afternoon class, Qin Sheng went directly to Tuanjie Lake. Chow Yufeng and his girlfriend invited him to dinner. After saying goodbye in a hurry before the spring festival, they finally had a chance to meet again today. Qin Shing did not refuse. After all, they were brothers in the same dormitory. Moreover, he had nothing to do tonight. Qin Shing had been back in Beijing for a long time, but it seemed that he had not eaten a real roast duck. Nowadays, many people would recommend Dadong as the best roast duck in Siju City. And the best restaurant in Dadong was Tuanjie Lake. It was said that Mr. Dong, who had been famous for a long time, often cooked here himself. As for the most famous roast duck in Quanjude, it was getting worse and worse. It could fool tourists who had not eaten roast duck before. Qin Shing went to find Chow Yufeng alone. Hao Lei and Chang Baji found a table randomly. They had not eaten roast duck before, so they could eat it today. Otherwise, they would have come to Beijing in vain. After seeing Qin Shing come in, Chow Yufeng stood up with a smile and waved his hand as he said, "Big boss, over here." Chow Yufeng's girlfriend Luo Xiao also stood up. Luo Xiao still remembered what had happened last time. If it had not been for Qin Shing, she would have suffered a great loss that time. Chow Yufeng would have been devastated. Qin Shing walked over slowly with a smile on his face. He smiled and said hello to Chow Yufeng and Luo Xiao. After sitting down, he said with a smile, "I was thinking that I would find time to invite you when I am not busy these days. But you beat me to it." Chow Yufeng replied, "I thought you were still in Shanghai, so I called you casually. I didn't expect you to be back. I just came back the day before yesterday. I attended an advanced course at the School of Economics and Management of Tsinghua University before the Spring Festival. I have been attending classes these days. It's so hard." Qin Shing sighed. Chow Yufeng said with a smile, "Isn't it good to go back to school? I miss my college life in Fudan the most. It was so comfortable and fulfilling at that time. Now, after going to work, it's really hard." Qin Shing said gently, "Yeah, campus life is the best. It's a pity that we can't go back. This is not a campus life. After all, it is not as pure as it used to be. It has been several years since we graduated from college. When I came back to Shanghai the year before last, the four of us got together. It seems that we never got together again. Every time, we were always short of each other." Chow Yufeng nodded and said, "Yeah, it was only once. You were all in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. I was the only one in Beijing. I was busy with work and a lot of trivial things in life. It was really difficult to find you. Moreover, you were also very busy. We couldn't make an appointment to meet each other. But it's much better now. At least you are back in Beijing. In the future, you can drink with someone." "Ha." Qin Shing said casually, "I will go back to Xi'an tomorrow. After I finish the business in Xi'an, I will trick Lao San and Lao Si into coming to Beijing. At that time, we can have a good gathering." Chow Yufeng said happily, "Okay. I will wait. I miss these two guys a little." After chatting for a while, Chow Yufeng asked Qin Shing to order dishes. Qin Shing asked him to order the signature dishes here. Luo Xiao volunteered to take the menu. In addition to Dadong's roast duck, there were 4 or 5 signature dishes. They chatted and drank happily. Apart from that, there was nothing else. They did not ask about those trifles, except that Qin Shing asked them whether they had chosen the wedding date. Now he was just waiting to attend the wedding banquet of Chow Yufeng and Yu Kefi. As for Xia Ding, Qin Shing had already given up hope. He estimated that Xia Ding would be even later than him. After returning to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Old Master, who went out early and came back late, still did not come back. Qin Shing began to pack his luggage. He was ready to go back to Xi, and the next morning to finish what he had been thinking about. Today was Friday. The Sihiyuan of the Song family was quite lively. Song Ryu and Song Hushing came back to see their grandfather at the same time. Usually they lived in their own homes. Only during the spring festival would they gather in the Sihiyuan. After dinner, the two of them chatted with Grandfather Song in the main hall, talking about some trivial matters. Song Hushing did not call Song Ryu out until old Master Song was ready to go to bed. The brother and sister sat on the stone block in the yard, each thinking about something. Song Hushing said thoughtfully, "Ryu, I heard that you met the guy from the Qin family when you were in Shanghai. Is that true?" Song Ryu said calmly, "How do you know?" "Don't worry about it." Song Hushing said in a low voice, "Ryu, I don't know what you are thinking about, but I want to tell you that the guy from the Qin family is not good enough for you. If you want to marry him, you'd better stop." "Brother, what kind of nonsense is that? I just met him a few times. How can you say that I am interested in him?" Song Ryu said with a smile, "How do you know what I am thinking about and what I am thinking about?" Song Hushing was confident in front of everyone except his sister. That was because he could never figure out his sister's thoughts. Consequently, he said helplessly, "Ryu, I don't know what you're thinking. I'm just reminding you in advance." Song Ryu smiled gently and said, "Brother, thank you for your kindness. I know you are doing this for my own good." Song Hushing hesitated for a moment and suddenly said, "Ryu, do you know about that thing?" Song Ryu frowned and said, "What thing? What thing?" Song Hushing shook his head and said, "Nothing. Maybe I was wrong." The brother and sister did not say anything more. It was hard to figure out what was on each other's mind. After saying goodbye, they left the Sihiyuan. Song Ryu's thoughts were naturally different from Song Hushing's, and Song Ryu could not understand what Song Hushing was thinking. However, if Song Hushing wanted to stop this thing, he had to make his grandfather give up completely. Obviously, he had to start with Qin Shing. "Qin Shing, I am sorry." Song Hushing squinted and said. He knew that he might offend many people by doing this. Not to mention his relationship with Qin Ran, the relationship between the Song family and the Qin family might also be strained. However, for the sake of his sister, Song Hushing had to do this. If Qin Shing knew what Song Hushing was thinking, he might directly go to Song Hushing's house and fight with him. "I have a girlfriend. Can't you check me first? I have never had any improper thoughts about your sister. I will not take the blame." In the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Qin Shing had been waiting for the old man. It was not until 12 o'clock that the old man came back. Qin Shing took the initiative to chat with the old man and told him that he would go back to Shi on the next morning. Qin Chang'an exhorted him with a few words. At the same time, he also told Qin Shing who he should visit after arriving in Xi'an. He had informed those friends in advance, which also made Qin Shing feel more confident. After all, this kind of thing was not a child's quarrel. Chapter 473. A small temple and an old monk. Some people went to Chang'an in the west, some went to Shanghai in the south, and some went to the capital in the north. They were all running around for what they wanted, but no one knew the final result. The former was because of Qin Shing, and the latter two were also because of Qin Shing, but they were not his friends. Compared with the small fights against Qin Shing, the storm against Qin Chang'an and the Qin family was still brewing. When everyone thought that this storm would be similar to the previous ones, where the thunder would be loud but the raindrops would be small, and then there would be a rainbow after the rain. However, some people were already worried. Wutai Mountain in Shaanxi was one of the 4 famous Buddhist mountains. The 5 peaks towered above the clouds, and there were no trees on the top, just like a platform made of earth, so it was called Wutai. Wutai Mountain was also the only Buddhist Taoist temple in the country where both green and yellow temples coexisted. There were 47 temples in total, most of which were built by imperial edict, or royal temples. Many emperors came to worship them. There were also many legends about Wutai Mountain, such as Lord Xuanji, who saw through the world of mortals and gave up his country, and finally became a monk in Wutai Mountain. Nanshan Temple was one of the oldest temples in Wutai Mountain. The temple was located in the north and facing the south. It was unknown when it was first built. It was rebuilt in the era of Emperor Dezong of the Tang dynasty, and was later destroyed. Only the big Buddha Hall was left from the Tang dynasty, and the others were mostly built in the Ming and Qing dynasties. Emperor Wuzong of the Tang dynasty destroyed Buddhism, and only Nanshan Temple escaped this disaster and luckily survived on Wutai Mountain. Therefore, it became the oldest existing wooden building. The Nanshan Temple was not big. There were only a few buildings in the shape of a quadrangle. The most famous ones were the Buddha statues from the Tang dynasty. Except for the Mogeo caves, these were the earliest Buddha statues in the country. Unfortunately, they were robbed 20 years ago, which caused the temple to suffer a heavy loss. Although Nanshan Temple was in Wutai County, it was not in the scenic area of Wutai Mountain. Instead, it was in a small village dozens of kilometers away, far away from the hustle and bustle of Wutai Mountain. Therefore, there were not many tourists, and only a few monks in the temple. There was an old monk who was over 60 years old. He came to Nanshan Temple more than 20 years ago, and had never left Wutai County since then. Now he was a relatively old monk in the temple, but he did not care about anything. Every day, he just swept the floor and wiped the inscriptions of the Buddha statues, and so on. Sometimes he would chat with a few tourists, but most of the time he was meditating and chanting. At noon that day, after the old monk finished his work, he stood alone on the steps in front of the main hall in a daze. The other monks in the temple were used to the old monk's way of doing things. There were a lot of weeds in the courtyard, but the old monk didn't allow them to clean them up. He said that he would get rid of them when the green turned yellow, so everyone just let him be. There were not many pilgrims. Most of them were tourists who came because of the fame of the temple. However, the villagers nearby were more respectful to them and often sent some things over. With the little incense money they had, they could live a good life. Of course, compared with the temples in the Wutai Mountain scenic area, they were really poor. However, those who chose to become monks here instead of going to the bustling Mount Wutai must have their own reasons. The old monk happened to go to Xiantong Temple to find an eminent monk to discuss Taoism with. It was only after he came back that he found out what had happened. At that time, the very young old monk had stayed in the temple for 5 or 6 years. It was the first time he was angry. Later, the thieves were brought to justice, and many cultural relics were recovered. Everyone said that it was karma. Only the old monk knew what had happened. Although the scenery of Nanshan Temple was not as beautiful as that of Mount Wutai, for the old monk, the blue sky above his head was already the most beautiful scenery. He was satisfied with these ancient wooden buildings. Moreover, he often went to the temples on Mount Wutai to visit the eminent monks and discuss Taoism. Sometimes he could stay there for 1 to half a month. No matter how good the scenery was, he had long been tired of it. It was unknown why there were no pilgrims today. Several little monks were muttering again. It seemed that the food this month would be reduced again. The most important thing was that Nanshan Temple did not charge entrance fees, so some little monks planned to go to the temples on Mount Wutai, which would obviously be more comfortable than here. Just after noon, a woman in a gray plain dress walked into Nanshan Temple. The sun outside was a little dazzling, so the woman wore sunglasses. In addition, she took good care of herself, so her specific appearance could not be seen clearly. However, from the woman's temperament, it could be seen that she came from a rich family. To put it bluntly, temperament could either be cultivated with money or cultivated with culture. It could not be contaminated with too much vulgarity. Then it would gradually come out. Seeing that there was finally a pilgrim coming in, and it was a pilgrim who seemed to be rich, the few little monks inevitably felt a little excited. Maybe if she was in a good mood, she would give them more money. After all, there were many pilgrims who were rich and willing to spend money. Of course, the old monk knew what the little monks were thinking, but he did not bother to pay attention to it. The 2 little monks took the initiative to approach her, bowed slightly, and said, "Amitabha." The woman with extraordinary temperament just smiled and nodded, but did not return the salute. The woman did not walk into the main hall where the Buddha statue was surrounded by iron fences. Instead, she went straight to the old monk who was sitting in the yard and basking in the sun, which made the two little monks quite disappointed. It was not until the woman approached that she took off her sunglasses. She was a middle-aged woman who was about 40 or 50 years old. Even though she took good care of herself, the years still left traces on her face. Moreover, nothing could hide the eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Before the woman opened her mouth, the old monk, whose beard and eyebrows were all white and whose face was full of wrinkles, opened his eyes first and said, "It's been more than 20 years. We finally meet again." Compared with the woman's delicate and smooth skin, the old monk's skin was dark and rough, which was similar to that of the old people in the nearby villages. However, his legs and feet were more flexible, and he did not have any chronic diseases. The woman's eyes were full of disdain. She sneered and said, "Then should I say long time no see? Qin Chongxing, I really did not expect that you have also holed up in this shabby temple for more than 20 years. You are more ruthless than I thought." Qin Chongxing. When the old monk heard this name, he was slightly absent-minded. He had not heard this name for a long time. Even when his biological brother came last time, he did not call this name. The old monk muttered to himself, "A day and a night in the world, and more than 10 years on the mountain, it is just SOSO. It was not until then that the two little monks next to him realized that this seemingly charming female benefactor turned out to be the old monk's friend. They tactfully retreated and left. They were already familiar with the old monk, who would occasionally have all kinds of inexplicable old friends come over. The middle-aged woman was full of hatred and sarcasm. It was really unknown what kind of deep hatred she had with the old monk. She continued to say bitterly and harshly, "Qin Chongxing, it has been more than 20 years. Haven't you been a coward enough?" The old monk smiled and did not get angry at all as he joked, "If being a monk means being a coward, then the people on Mount Wutai are all cowards. It is quite interesting." The middle-aged woman laughed somewhat harshly and said, "Other people become monks because they have seen through the world of mortals. You become a monk because you want to escape from reality. You are not even 1/10 of your brother." The old monk said disapprovingly, "Why haven't I seen through the world of mortals?" The middle-aged woman snorted and said, "You know better than anyone else whether you have seen through the world of mortals or not. Don't forget what the old master said about you at that time. I'm afraid that you can't escape in this life. More than 20 years ago, you, Qin Chongxing, were so glorious. Didn't you just encounter some setbacks? What did Qin Chang'an do? What did you do? More than 20 years later, those people who were your age at that time are now high-ranking officials with great power. Even Qin Chang'an is already standing at the top of the pyramid. Look at you, reduced to being a monk in a broken temple. You are really a disgrace to the Qin family and the Zhao family. I really don't know why I fell in love with you at that time." The old monk did not respond directly. Instead, he sighed and said somewhat disappointedly, "Anji, it has been more than 20 years. The things that happened in those years have already disappeared. Haven't you let it go? Moreover, it is rare for us to meet again. There is no need to talk about these trivial things. Can't we talk about the old days like old friends?" The old monk did not respond directly. Instead, he sighed and said somewhat disappointedly, "Her surname was Zhao, and her name was Anji. Unfortunately, she was the opposite." The middle-aged woman called Zhao Anji shook her head and said with a bitter smile, "Talking about the old days? There is nothing to talk about between us. I just came to see if you were dead. I didn't expect that you could still recognize me." "How can I not recognize you? After all, we have been husband and wife for so many years. Even after a few decades, I can still recognize you. It's just that I am already an old man over 60 years old, but you look like you have just entered middle age," the old monk said lightly. Yes, this woman called Zhao Anji was his former wife. After what happened that year, she went far away to Canada, and he also became a monk. From then on, they were husband and wife in name but not in reality. Zhao Anji suddenly felt somewhat relieved. She looked up at the cloudless sky and let out a long sigh. Forget it. It's useless for me to argue with you about this. So many years have passed. If you want to be a coward, continue to be a tortoise. Anyway, the next time we meet, it will be after I send you off. If you die in front of me, the separation of life and death has long been indifferent. Even the old master can die namelessly. Why can't I? The old monk said lightly. Zhao Anji laughed and said, You don't deserve to mention the old master. There are some things that you don't know. The old monk shook his head and said, Let's not talk about this. Why did you come back this time? Zhao Anji said casually, I haven't been back for a few years. I just came back to see someone. At least he is the future of your Qin family. When the old monk heard this, he suddenly became a little nervous. Who? Zhao Anji suddenly laughed out loud and said, Qin Changxing, it seems that your brother did not tell you. It means that he also has resentment towards you. If you want to know, then ask him yourself. Forget it. If you don't know, then I don't know. The old monk originally wanted to know, but he felt that the answer was meaningless to him now. So he gave up. Zhao Anji smiled playfully, turned around and walked out. The old monk hesitated for a moment and finally braced himself to shout, Anji, how is Yaya? After hearing this, Zhao Anji stopped subconsciously. Then, she turned around angrily and glared at the old monk, shouting, Qin Changxing. No matter what, I am her father, the old monk said in a daze. Zhao Anji said hysterically, She doesn't have a father like you. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve to be a son. You don't deserve to be a brother. You don't deserve to be a husband. You don't deserve to be a father. Your life is a failure. You should continue to be a monk. The few little monks not far away were frightened by Zhao Anji's sudden anger. They did not expect this kind-looking female benefactor to be so irritable. They did not know how the old monk had provoked her. Could it be that this female benefactor was the old monk's old lover? Obviously, they guessed right. After shouting these last words, Zhao Anji almost vented all the resentment that she had suppressed for more than 20 years. Then, she turned around and left without hesitation, leaving only the old monk in the yard in a daze. Chapter 474. Hatred? Really? Even if Zhao Anji and Qin Changxing had been husband and wife for the last 20 years or so, they had been husband and wife in name only. At the very least, they had been husband and wife for the first 20 years. Why did it seem like there was no love at all? It was all resentment. Although he had been a monk in Nanshan Temple for more than 20 years, Qin Changxing was still a little depressed. He had no contact with his wife, Zhao Anji, since he walked into Nanshan Temple. They had not seen each other for more than 20 years. Every time, other friends or his younger brother Qin Chang'an came to see him and told him about his wife. Everyone thought that Qin Changxing had no children, including himself. It was not until a few years ago that his younger brother Qin Chang'an came to Nanshan Temple and told him that he had a daughter he had never met. After hearing the news, Qin Changxing was shocked for a long time. After confirming the authenticity of the news, he finally cried tears of joy. Qin Chang'an would not lie to his elder brother. Moreover, she was his niece. At that time, his elder brother and sister-in-law did not plan to have children and wanted to be a dink couple. It was not until his elder brother became a monk that his sister-in-law learned that she was pregnant. This child was his elder brother's, but sister-in-law did not tell him. After all, the Qin family was in a precarious situation. Sister-in-law did not dare to put pressure on his elder brother and finally took the child to Canada. Now this child had grown up and just graduated last year. She was working in the North American headquarters of Chang'an Group. However, only Qin Chang'an and sister-in-law Zhao Anji knew about this. Even Qin Ran did not know that she had a cousin. Of course, Zhao Anji's family knew about it. Qin Changxing had been sitting in the yard until the moon was up. A little monk, who was a doctor of architecture when he was young and later became a monk because of love, came over and said, "Martial uncle, be careful of the spring cold. You'd better go back to your room and have a rest." Qin Changxing waved his hand, indicating that the little monk should leave and not disturb him. The little monk sighed and had no choice but to leave. After a while, another old monk, who was older than Qin Changxing, came over and said calmly, "Junior brother, I have never seen you in such a mood." "Senior brother, do you think I did something wrong?" Qin Changxing asked calmly. He had been thinking about this question today. The old monk, who was called senior brother by Qin Changxing, was the master in charge of this place. He was also a famous eminent monk on Mount Wutai. It was just that he didn't care about worldly affairs. The old monk chuckled and said, "Others will always say that you are wrong. Only you know it." Junior brother, although you've stayed in Nanshan Temple for so many years, I've always felt that you haven't let go of the past. I don't know what past can make you so stubborn, but I know that since you can't cut off your mortal bonds, even if you cultivate here for 10,000 years, you still won't achieve great success. Senior brother, I want to think about it carefully, Qin Changxing said, nodding his head silently. He already knew who his wife, Zhao Anji, wanted to see when she came back. Other than the nephew who had been taken away by the old master, there was probably no one else. After all, Zhao Anji had already revealed two key pieces of information. One was that he was the future of the Qin family, and the other was that his younger brother, Qin Chang'an, had not told him about it. Furthermore, Qin Chang'an had told him last time that the old master had already passed away. Apparently, Sheng Er had returned to the Qin family. When Sheng Er left, the Qin family was in a precarious situation, which was the lowest point in many years. Now that Sheng Er was back, the Qin family seemed to be as bright and beautiful as the sun in the sky. However, extreme prosperity would lead to decline. It was common for extreme joy to lead to sorrow. Moreover, the times were advancing and the reform was going on. When a new era appeared, the original vested interests would inevitably be overthrown, and the Qin family was the former vested interests. Therefore, how could Qin Changxing not worry about the upcoming danger? After Zhao Anji met her husband, Qin Changxing, she left Mount Wutai and drove directly back to Beijing. After she got off the plane, she did not have time to meet anyone. Instead, she went straight to Mount Wutai. Originally, she had prepared a lot of words, but when she saw Qin Changxing, those words disappeared like smoke in thin air. In Beijing, Zhao Anji was staying in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, which was the closest to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. In the past, when she returned to Beijing, she would stay in her mother's house or the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. However, this time, she did not do so. Instead, she chose to stay in a hotel because she still had something to deal with. The Sihiyuan of the Qin family was originally the old residence of the Qin family. It was just that they were forced to sell it back then. Later, after Qin Chang'an made a fortune, he bought it back and renovated it again. When Zhao Anji returned to the suite, she saw a girl in only gray pajamas washing up inside. Her eyes were hazy and she looked a little lazy. Her hair was even more messy. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the girl asked casually, "Mom, you are back." Hearing the girl's voice, the wrinkles on Zhao Anji's face gradually disappeared. Her mood instantly became cheerful. She said, "Yaya, are you sleeping again? I think you can't get over the jet lag." The girl did not respond. Instead, after washing up, she came out and said with a smile, "I have been working overtime recently. I was too tired, so I slept for a while. Don't worry, I will get over the jet lag. Mom, don't worry." Lying on the sofa, Zhao Anji turned on her mobile phone and replied, "Then you should pack up quickly. You will have dinner with your uncle and aunt later." The girl named Ye frowned and said, "Don't you want to see uncle first? I still have a lot of work to report to uncle. Those guys in North America are all good-for-nothings. They can't do anything." Zhao Anji was a little speechless. "Let's talk about work later. Don't be so anxious. You are really the blood of the Qin family. Everything is for your uncle." The girl named Yaya was naturally the daughter of Zhao Anji and Qin Chongxing. Yaya was very beautiful. After all, the genes of the Qin family were better. She had a high nose bridge and big eyes. Her facial features were extremely exquisite, and she somewhat resembled Qin Ran. Yaya did not return to China many times. When she was a teenager, she went back to her hometown for the first time and met a bunch of ants. Later, she accompanied Zhao Anji back a few times. However, Zhao Anji did not let Yaya become a banana person. Instead, she cultivated her Chinese culture from an early age. Therefore, Yaya spoke Chinese very smoothly. Of course, she also knew French and German. "Mom, did you see him?" Yaya asked a little uneasily. Of course, she knew who the person her mother saw was. It was naturally her biological father. However, Yaya had no feelings for this father. On the contrary, her feelings for her uncle were deeper. After all, she had seen her uncle many times. So far, she had not seen her biological father. She had only seen her father's old photos. So when her mother asked her if she wanted to see him, Yaya always refused. It was because she did not know what to say when she saw him. After all, there were no feelings. They were only related by blood. Zhao Anji nodded faintly and said, "Yes, I saw him. But I was very disappointed. Qin Chongxing used to be so energetic. Now, Qin Chongxing is just an old monk over 60 years old. He is not who I imagined him to be." From her mother's description, Yaya could imagine what her father looked like now. So she was even more unwilling to see the so-called father. It was not that she hated or resented the father. She had never had a man who had never appeared in her life. Why should they disturb each other's lives? If she had been with her father since she was a child, then her father had become a monk for some reason. Now, even if he was in dire straits, he was still her father. She would not despise him. "Mom, do you still hate him?" Yaya asked curiously. Zhao Anji subconsciously blurted out, "Hate him? Why wouldn't I hate him?" Yaya asked again. "Others don't know if you really hate him or not, but I know. Mom, you still love him very much, right?" After hearing this, Zhao Anji was silent. Anyway, they were husband and wife after all, and they were not divorced. Although she had emigrated to Canada, if she really hated Qin Chongxing, she might have divorced him long ago. She still remembered how bright and confident Qin Chongxing was when he was young. She also remembered how he had climbed up the ladder and how much people yearned for him. Therefore, she deeply loved the Qin Chongxing of the past. But now? From the moment Qin Chongxing escaped to Buddhism, her love had been broken, leaving only endless hatred. But love and hate were still there. Love and hate were the same person, so Zhao Anji was still very conflicted. Because of the conflict, she chose not to see him for more than 20 years. She said that Qin Chongxing was escaping, but she was also escaping. Seeing that her mother was lost in thought, Yaya stopped asking these questions. She only knew that she had to report to her uncle about the work in North America, and she had to meet her sister and brother, who were all her uncle's children. Thinking of this, Yaya was quite excited and expectant. Qin Chang'an did not know that his sister-in-law, Zhao Anji, had returned to Beijing. He was afraid that because of some things, sister-in-law had to come back to prepare for a rainy day. After all, he had promised Yaya that he would give some company shares. As for Qin Xing, he had already arrived in Xi'an with Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Hao Lei did not tell his parents that he had returned to Xi'an, so he did not go home. Instead, He accompanied Changbaji to stay at the Hyatt Hotel, which was not far from Jindi Farong Shurjia, where Qin Ran stayed last time. They first sent Qin Sheng to Jindi Farong Shurjia, and then went to the hotel to check in. Qin Sheng also told Hao Lei some things, such as who to meet today and tomorrow, how to arrange dinner in the evening, and so on. Changbaji also had a task, which was to first contact the influential boss in Shi and whom he had followed before. At that time, if there was any need, he could directly help. Qin Sheng had told Auntie Wang and Xian in advance that he would come back today. Xian had already returned to Shi and last night. The two of them were anxiously waiting for Qin Sheng's return at home. Without Qin Sheng, their backbone, they did not know how to start. After all, they had been waiting for this day for several years. Chapter 475. Chapter 474. Don't worry. Qin Sheng had already guessed the obstacles he might encounter. What were they? The obstacles were not only from the opponents who framed the Lin family. After all, this was a reversal of the case. Obviously, they would fight back without hesitation and try their best. The obstacles also came from the system. Although he had Qin Chang'an's resources, Qin Sheng was going to challenge the public security system that handled this case. This kind of resistance could be imagined. Although the big boss had been sent to jail, and many people had been sent to jail with him, most of them were fine. Once this case was rehabilitated, someone would naturally have to take responsibility for the original injustice. No one wanted to lose their secure job, so they would definitely take risks out of desperation. When Qin Sheng arrived, it was lunchtime. Wang Li had already prepared a table full of dishes, all of which were Qin Sheng's favorites. The mother and daughter went to the supermarket early in the morning to do some shopping. They were busy for the whole morning. It could be considered as spending their old age with Qin Sheng. After Qin Sheng rang the doorbell, they quickly put down the things in their hands and ran to the door at the same time. Xian had been asking where Qin Sheng was through WeChat, so when he arrived at the community, Qin Sheng had already sent her a WeChat message. After opening the door, Qin Sheng greeted Auntie Wang and Xian with a smile. Auntie Wang quickly took the things in Qin Sheng's hands and complained, "Every time you come back, you buy so many things. Next time you can't." Qin Sheng smiled and did not say anything. These were all things he brought from the Qin family, which could be regarded as a New Year's greeting to Auntie Wang. Xian directly hugged Qin Sheng and said, "Brother, I missed you so much. How long has it been?" Qin Sheng deliberately said disapprovingly, which made Xian pout and raise her fist to express her dissatisfaction. In fact, when Qin Sheng was in Shanghai, Xian had already returned to school, but Qin Sheng had no time to find her. The familiar feeling of returning to the Lin family was really good. This was the place where Qin Sheng had the deepest feelings except the old house where he lived with his grandfather. It felt better than in the Qin family's Sihiyuan, without any pressure. Qin Sheng did not eat breakfast today, nor did he eat anything on the plane. He knew that Auntie Wang would definitely have a sumptuous lunch, so he had endured until now. At this time, he was already very hungry. After changing his shoes, he directly ran to the dining room and began to secretly eat with his hand. After Wang Li put down the things, she patted Qin Sheng's arm lightly and said, "This kid, why is he still the same as when he was young? Go wash your hands, we're waiting for you." Ever since old Master Qin passed away, Wang Li had only seen Qin Sheng a handful of times in the past few years. Every time they met, it would only be for a few days. Moreover, Qin Sheng often disappeared without warning, so she did not spend much time with Qin Sheng. However, she had watched Qin Sheng grow up. Her feelings for Qin Sheng were not any less than Xian's. Hence, every time she saw Qin Sheng, Wang Li wanted to spend some time with him. However, Qin Sheng was getting busier and busier. Moreover, he had found his family. Wang Li also knew that she did not have many chances. Every time she thought of this, she would feel somewhat disappointed. At the dining table, Qin Sheng only cared about sweeping away the food. Wang Li and Xin had long been used to it. After all, for so many years, Qin Sheng had always been eating like this. He could not change it no matter how many times he tried. In the end, they just let it go. Wang Li and Xin ate more slowly. Most of the time, they just stared at Qin Sheng as he ate, then served him food and soup. After a while, Qin Sheng finally ate and drank to his heart's content. He then said, Xin, how's your preparation for the postgraduate entrance examination? Work hard and try to get into Tsinghua University or Peking University. As long as your score is enough, you don't have to worry about the interview. I can also take care of you in Beijing. With the Qin family's ability today, of course, this small matter was not worth mentioning. Naturally, Qin Sheng hoped that Xin could have a better tomorrow. Anyway, Xin did not need to worry about work and so on. Xin muttered, Brother, I don't want to take the postgraduate entrance examination. I want to go back to Xi and to take care of Mom. If Dad comes out, I can also accompany Dad. Wang Li was the first to say discontentedly, What are you saying? Listen to your brother and prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination. Otherwise, you won't be able to find a job in the future and you won't be able to get married. Your father and I are still so young, we don't need you to take care of us. At this time, Qin Sheng smiled and said, Xin, these things are not for you to worry about. You just need to study hard. When you get into Beijing, I will bring Uncle Lin and Aunt Wang to Beijing. In this way, you won't miss anything. Really? Hearing this promise, Xin was instantly excited. Qin Sheng said happily, Why would I lie to you? Okay, then I will work hard to prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination. Brother, don't worry, I will definitely get into Beijing. In this way, our family of 4 can be reunited, Xin said firmly. Once she thought of that scene, she was full of motivation. After this matter was settled, Qin Sheng got down to business. He said, Aunt, Uncle Lin knows about this, right? The Supreme Court has already started the procedure. The Provincial High Court is also preparing to re-examine the case. Tomorrow, I will accompany you to the High Court to submit the remaining materials. The legal team will also arrive in Xi'an tomorrow morning. I have invited one of the famous lawyers in Beijing. He is better at this kind of case. I have also talked to them on the phone. They said that it should not be a big problem. When Wang Li heard these words, she felt more and more confident. She replied, After you left, I met your Uncle Lin a few times and told him about the progress of the case. The provincial high school also contacted us, but your Uncle Lin still wants to talk to you. Also, the lawyer you hired, is the fee very expensive? Wang Li was not a middle-aged woman who had not seen the world. After all, when the Lin family was in the limelight, Wang Li had experienced everything. Moreover, when the Lin family was in the court, the lawyer they hired was also relatively famous in the province. For this reason, they paid a lot of lawyer fees. Qin Sheng comforted her, Aunt, don't worry about these trivial things. I will handle it. You just need to pay attention to the case. Sheng can afford this little money. Wang Li wanted to say a few more words, but finally gave up. She knew that no matter what she said, she could not force Qin Sheng. But what she knew was that today's Qin Sheng was no longer the child he used to be. The Qin family should have a very strong background. Otherwise, they would not be able to ease this case through the Supreme Court. After lunch, Qin Sheng chatted with Auntie Wang and Xin for a while. When Chang Baji drove the car over, he took Xin to see Uncle Lin. The branch in Xi'an had arranged for 2 cars. Qin Sheng directly contacted the person in charge. One car was responsible for his travel, and the other car was used for other things. When Qin Sheng saw Uncle Lin, Uncle Lin's complexion was much better than before. Perhaps people were in high spirits after a happy event. Since Qin Sheng had talked to Uncle Lin through the old man, now Uncle Lin was treated very well in the prison. At least he did not need to do manual work, and was not bullied by the prison bullies. Uncle Lin, I haven't come to see you for a long time. You don't blame Xinger, right? Qin Sheng said emotionally. Uncle Lin had really suffered a lot these years. Lin Shi was happier than anything to see his children. How could he blame Qin Sheng? He smiled and said, Xinger, what are you talking about? How could Uncle Lin blame you? You've grown up now and have a lot of things to do. As long as you get better and better. Qin Sheng said calmly, Uncle Lin, Auntie Wang should have told you everything. The day after tomorrow, I will bring my lawyer to see you. At that time, you can talk to the lawyer about the details. Speaking of this, Lin Shi frowned slightly and said, Xinger, this is also what I want to talk to you about. Uncle Lin is old, and it won't be long before he can go out. There is no need to go through so much trouble. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, Uncle Lin, it's not trouble at all. You don't have to worry so much. Lin Shi thought for a moment and said, Uncle Lin is afraid that you will offend someone. Although that person has fallen, the evil people in the past are still there. They will definitely stop it. At that time, you will also be in danger. If something happens to you, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. Qin Sheng had thought about these things, so he immediately made plans after returning to Xi'an. He was afraid that there would be too many uncontrollable unknown situations. The more Uncle Lin said in this way, the more Qin Sheng felt sorry for him. This old man, who had raised him up, was still worried about him at this time. In order to dispel Uncle Lin's worries, Qin Sheng said directly, Uncle Lin, if I don't have absolute confidence, I won't take risks easily. I think Auntie Wang has already told you that I found my long-lost relatives before the Spring Festival. Lin Shi came to his senses and said, If you didn't mention it, I almost forgot about it. Your Auntie Wang told me some time ago when she came to see me. I really didn't expect that after so many years, even the old master has passed away, you could still find your long-lost relatives. Qin Sheng sighed and said, Yes, sometimes life is so wonderful. I have never thought about it. Uncle Lin, Auntie Wang must have told you something about my relatives, right? Lin Shi frowned slightly and said, More or less, but I am not clear. She only said that they are all in Beijing, and she also met your sister. Qin Sheng continued, Uncle Lin, I will not say more about the situation of other relatives. I think you should have heard of my father's name, which is the fundamental reason why I have the confidence to do this. Lin Shi was surprised and asked, Your father? Yes. Qin Sheng nodded slightly. Lin Shi asked curiously, Who is he? Qin Sheng said slowly, Qin Chang'an of Chang and Group. Qin Sheng did not keep Lin Shi guessing, but told him the answer truthfully. Although Qin Sheng had some conflicts with the old man, he absolutely did not deny the old man's position in the domestic capital market. As expected, after hearing the name, Lin Shi was instantly stunned. He felt a little unbelievable for a moment. After a long time, he came to his senses and said incredulously, You said that Qin Chang'an of Chang and Group is your father? Yes, Uncle Lin, how could I lie to you about this kind of thing? The reason why your case could be reopened by the Supreme Court is that he pushed behind the scenes, Qin Sheng said bluntly. Lin Shi was lost in thought again. He really could not believe that the giant of the domestic capital market was actually Qin Sheng's biological father, which was really incredible. Chapter 476. A good Carmelin, she still remembered the scene when he met Old Master Qin at Leguantai. At that time, Old Master Qin's business was struggling and he encountered many problems. Lin Shi, who was in a bad mood, went to Leguantai to burn incense. Lin Shi believed in Taoism but not Buddhism. He thought that Buddhism was imported, and Taoism was the extension of traditional Chinese culture. Since Luguantai was the holy land of Taoism, Lin Shi went there alone to relax. At that time, Luguantai was dilapidated. There were only a few halls that had not been repaired for a long time. It was not as magnificent as it was today, and there were not as many tourists. However, at that time, Luguantai was like a real holy land of Taoism. Today, Luguantai was just a bustling tourist attraction. Most of the Taoists had hidden in Zhongnan Mountains. After burning incense, Lin Shi met two old men who were playing chess in a pavilion outside. One of them was a Taoist priest of Luguantai. At that time, Lin Shi did not know that this Taoist priest was old Taoist Ren, who later served 2 terms as the president of the China Taoist Association. However, what made him more curious at that time was the old man opposite old Taoist Ren. Old Taoist Ren was very respectful to him. The 2 old men played 3 rounds of chess. Lin Shi watched them play until the 2 old men stopped and decided to play another day. In the end, the old man won the game 2-1. Although Lin Shi had been watching the game, he did not say a word from beginning to end. On the one hand, he knew the rules. On the other hand, he was not in a good mood and did not want to interrupt. Of course, the 2 old men did not say a word to him either. When Lin Shi was about to leave, the old man who had won the game said slowly, "Young man, good luck is coming. Why do you look like this?" Lin Shi did not know whether to laugh or cry when he heard the words, "Good luck is coming." He had been forced into a dead end. How could he still have good luck? Lin Shi sighed and said, "Old man, I have encountered a lot of setbacks recently. It is the lowest point of my life. That is why I came to Luguantai. I don't know where the good fortune you mentioned is coming. Please enlighten me." Therefore, old Master Qin chatted with Lin Shi, the man he met by chance. He asked him what difficulties he had encountered recently and answered his questions one by one. In the end, Lin Shi was suddenly enlightened. He was suddenly enlightened as if he saw the rainbow after the rain. Lin Shi was at a loss and said, "Old man, you are my good luck. I know what to do. Old man, I really don't know how to repay you for your kindness." Old Master Qin did not stand on ceremony. He smiled and said, "Since we are destined to meet, if you don't think it's troublesome, I really have something to ask of you. It can be regarded as a good karma." "Master Qin," Lin said, "as long as I can do, I can will. So old Master Qin told him that he had been traveling with his grandson and planned to settle in Zhongnan Mountains. But when his grandson reached the age of school, he wanted Lin Shi to help raise him. Perhaps this was fate. If Lin Shi was an ordinary person, this would be a troublesome thing. Moreover, old Master Qin only said a few words to Lin Shi, but Lin Shi agreed after thinking for a moment. Thus, this good karma had lasted until now. At first, Wang Li found it hard to accept. She thought that Lin Shi must be crazy. But she could not change his temper, so she could only agree. Later, he got used to living in the Lin family. Lin Shi and Wang Li liked him very much. They only had one daughter, so they treated him like their own son. Old Master Qin never mentioned it, nor did he give the Lin family any child support. Lin Shi did not care about it at all. He was responsible for all the expenses, and he was treated better than his daughter. Today, at this moment, Lin Shi finally understood what the good karma that old Master Qin had mentioned was. If he had not met old Master Qin back then, not to mention whether he could have survived that ordeal, this would not have happened today. Moreover, Lin Shi knew very well what his future life would be like. This good luck would be the biggest blessing in his life. Luckily, he did not reject old Master Qin. "I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this," Lin Shi murmured. Xian did not know who Qin Chang'an was. After all, she had never cared about these things. However, she knew the background and status of the Chang'an group. After all, she majored in business management. Those professors and teachers often used the Chang'an group as a business case. Qin Shing smiled bitterly and said, I didn't expect this either. Now, Uncle Lin, can you rest assured? My father is quite busy these days. Otherwise, he would have come to Xi'an to deal with this in person. But before he left, he said that he would wait in Beijing to drink with you. Lin Shi didn't know how to respond at that moment. He didn't even know how to address that man. After all, he and that man were worlds apart. Of course, he knew what the Chang'an group represented, so he also knew how important Qin Shing would be in the future. Lin Shi said thoughtfully, Xinger, I remember that before your grandfather passed away, I went to see him once. He made an exception and told me that I might have a big disaster in the next 2 years. But don't be discouraged. As long as you take everything lightly, everything will be fine. Today I finally understand. Qin Shing was quite shocked. He did not expect his grandfather to be able to predict the future. Qin Shing had always been dubious about many things that were beyond scientific explanation. However, when it came to his grandfather, Qin Shing firmly believed in it without a doubt. That was because he had seen too many stories and legends of his grandfather's life. They did not talk too much and stopped talking about his grandfather. Qin Shing had just unveiled the mysterious veil about his grandfather, but he knew that it must be wonderful. He thought that he had worshipped his grandfather in a hurry before the spring festival and did not talk much with him. He was afraid that his grandfather was a little lonely. He would go to worship his grandfather tomorrow and have a good talk with him. He must miss his grandson. After all, he was the one who had the deepest relationship with his grandfather in the whole Qin family. It was almost evening when Qin Shing came back from the prison where Uncle Lin was serving his sentence. He sent Xin home and was ready to meet Hao Lei to go to the Japanese restaurant in Sujiang. When he called his sister, she said that her friend liked to eat Japanese, so he asked Hao Lei to book a Japanese restaurant. Fortunately, there were many high-end restaurants in Sujiang. After all, it was the so-called rich area in Xi'an, so there was no shortage of rich people. Since Qin Shing was going to meet different people in Xi'an, he brought a few sets of clothes for different occasions. His wife, Lin Su, had prepared these clothes for him when he was in Shanghai. She was afraid that he would be flustered if no one helped him when he was in Beijing. After all, Qin Shing was representing the Qin family now. The name of this Japanese restaurant was very artistic. It was called Brahman. It was in Sujiang Furong Xintiandi, not far from Jindi Furong Shijia. Qin Shing changed his clothes and went out. Chang Baji and Hao Lei were already waiting outside. It was the first time for Wang Li and Xin to see Qin Shing dressed so formally. They were used to Qin Shing's freedom, so they were more or less not used to it. However, clothes make the man. Qin Shing, who was in a suit and shirt, indeed had an outstanding temperament. Moreover, he had a pretty good appearance, which was all attributed to the strong genes of the Qin family. Brother, if I didn't know that you were meeting a friend, I would have thought that you were going out for a blind date, Xin said half-jokingly as she looked at her brother, who was no worse than a male model. Qin Shing laughed and said, Do I still need a blind date? Those are all beauties chasing after me in a line. Xin rolled her eyes and said, Tut, 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 I almost forgot that when someone was chasing after Sister Su Qin, he wrote love letters, played the guitar, and promised to be the first in the whole grade. Tut, tut, tut. These were Qin Shing's past events in the past, which were also told by Su Qin to Xin. Although Qin Shing did not get together with Su Qin had always treated Xin as her younger sister. Hence, the relationship between the two of them was quite good. Including Han Bing later, Qin Shing did not know why, but Han Bing and Xin had a good relationship, which was really funny. Hearing this, Qin Shing instantly did not want to talk. After all, he was a little annoyed at the mention of Su Qin. He did not plan to find Su Qin when he came back. It was best not to disturb each other and slowly forget about each other. In a quiet corner of the Japanese restaurant, Qin Shing quietly waited for the man who was doing well in Xi'an. He always felt that this kind of restaurant was more suitable for couples. If it was with friends, they would prefer to go to those roadside food stalls. But not everyone had the same attitude towards life, let alone the man who was meeting for the first time today. Qin Shing did not wait for long, and the man came late. He was dressed as formally as Qin Shing, also in a suit and shirt. Obviously, he also attached great importance to today's meeting. When the man approached, Qin Shing slowly stood up and said with a smile, "Brother Lu, I finally see you in person." "Qin Shing, you are welcome. Sorry to keep you waiting." Brother Lu took the initiative to shake hands with Qin Shing and said with a smile, Ran must have told you that I like to eat Japanese food, so you chose this Japanese restaurant." Qin Shing said with a smile, "Brother Lu, you guessed it. This Japanese restaurant is not bad. The boss is a friend of mine. I often bring my friends here to support me. However, I prefer to cook by myself. You can come to my home when you have time. I can cook for you whatever you want to eat," Brother Lu said in a very natural manner. He did not feel awkward at all when they met for the first time. Qin Shing naturally promised, "Then I will be lucky." Because Brother Lu often came here, Qin Shing took the initiative to let Brother Lu order the dishes and ordered 2 bottles of sake. After all, the relationship between men would progress faster with wine. But the relationship between Qin Shing and Brother Lu was more interesting. In terms of status, Qin Shing was naturally higher than Brother Lu, but Qin Shing needed help from Brother Lu, so they were equal. Brother Lu was not Qin Ran's classmate, but a business partner of the Qin family in Xi'an, so they were close. Moreover, the Lu family's background was not simple, at least they had people in the court. After chatting about some trivial things, Qin Shing smiled and said, "Brother Lu, thank you for what happened last time. This glass of wine is for you." Brother Lu said thoughtfully, "It's just a small matter. Let's not talk about it. If something happens to you and your sister in Xi'an, I'm afraid that Master Qin will scold me to death. I still remember how he scolded me in the past." "The old man scolded you?" Qin Shing said with a smile. Brother Lu did not think it was something shameful. On the contrary, he felt it was very honorable. He smiled and said, "What do you think? But I am not angry at all. Master Qin scolded me because he took me seriously." "This is the old man's temper," Qin Shing said happily. Brother Lu drank another glass of sake and said slowly, "Qin Shing, Ran told me about your trip to Xi'an this time. I have a rough understanding of it. About the other side, then," Brother Lu told Qin Shing about the specific situation of the enemy who almost destroyed the Lin family. Qin Shing also listened quietly. Chapter 477. Chapter 476. The truths already here. Brother Lu's full name was Lu Changxi. He was handsome, had a good family background, and was rich. It was a description of someone like Lu Changxi, who was envied and hated by most people. The Lu family was considered a rich and prosperous family in Xi'an. There were many officials and politicians, and many people in academia. However, Lu Changxi's family was the only one in business. Lu Changxi's grandfather started his business by selling salt. At that time, his family was the richest. The other 2 granduncles and uncles took different paths. However, the Lu family paid special attention to the relationship between brothers, so Lu Changxi's grandfather had been secretly supporting the other 2 brothers, especially the eldest granduncle who took the revolutionary route. Of course, he also secretly supported the revolutionary cause. The Lu family was originally a family of scholars, but the 3 brothers eventually took different paths. The eldest joined the revolution, the second sold salt and did business, and the third continued to teach and educate people. During the 10 years of turmoil, Lu Changxi's grandfather suffered a lot. If it wasn't for the secret help of the eldest granduncle, he probably wouldn't have survived. After the society stabilized, Lu Changxi's grandfather continued to do business again. With the help of the eldest granduncle and the resources left by the Lu family for the revolution, the business became more and more successful. However, the eldest granduncle and uncles had children. Lu Changxi's grandfather only had his father. When it came to his generation, things were better. Other than him, he had 2 older sisters. Therefore, Lu Changxi had been doted on since he was young. He had never suffered. His grandfather and father treated him like a treasure. He also had 2 older sisters. In addition, the uncles on the eldest granduncle and uncle's side also doted on him. This kid was really blessed by several lifetimes. Most of the children of the eldest granduncle and uncles joined the army, politics, and academia. Lu Changxi's father and he could only inherit the family business to maintain the Lu family's resources in this branch. After all, they often had to support these collateral relatives. The Lu family exploded in the last 10 years. Because one of the uncles on the eldest granduncle's side had a meteoric career, the other uncles also went further and further. Therefore, the Lu family's business grew bigger and bigger. However, in recent years, the Lu family gradually kept a low profile. After all, they couldn't affect the future of those uncles. This was the future and foundation of the Lu family. Lu Changxi had been a smart person since he was a child. He made many friends with his brothers and sisters. He knew how to conduct himself and kept a low profile, so he had many friends from all walks of life. However, the Lu family was very strict. In addition, he had been taught a lot by those uncles, so he began to settle down after taking over the family business. The Lu family and the Qin family did not have much contact. However, Lu Changxi's father had a good relationship with Qin Chang'an. Every time Lu Changxi went to Beijing, he would visit Qin Chang'an. As a result, many businesses of the Qin family in Shaanxi were handed over to the Lu family. Besides, the Lu family had a stake in many projects. After they arrived in Xi and Changxi, Tian, Changxi, he could be trusted. Looking for Lu Changxi this time was not like looking for Chu Fan in Ningbo last time. The status of the two people was totally different. Moreover, Lu Changxi could provide more help for him. Lu and Lu Chang. Lu Changxi Qin Xing understood what Lu Changxi meant. He could ask whoever he wanted to help. However, the Lu family wouldn't get involved in this matter directly, because they didn't want to offend too many people. After all, the Lu family was rooted in this land, which would cause a lot of trouble. After Qin Xing heard what he said, he could understand it. It was comfortable to see each other so frankly. Consequently, Qin Xing said, "Brother Lu, I understand what you mean. After all, you know them and live under the same roof. Consequently, it is inappropriate for you to help them directly. In fact, I don't want you to help me too much. I just need you to do some trivial things." Lu Changxi said in a low voice, "Qin Xing, I know what you mean. You should do your business. If they play dirty, I won't sit back and do nothing." Qin Xing smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother Lu. You are welcome. We are family," Lu Changxi said, holding up his glass. After a while, Lu Changxi said curiously, "Qin Xing, I heard that you grew up in Xi'an. I was shocked when Ran Ran told me. To be honest, I didn't know that Ran Ran had a brother. Later I understood." Qin Xing explained, "It's just some trivial things in our family. Let's not talk about it. When I was in Xi'an, I was raised by the Lin family. That's why I came back this time." Lu Changxi said thoughtfully, "Then I understand. You know how to repay kindness. Qin Xing, you are a man. Let me drink to you." The meeting went on with jokes and trivial things. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. After all, they had wine. After that, they put their arms around each other's shoulders and went out. They didn't regret not meeting each other earlier, but just had the same status. Qin Shing got something, which was to ensure that there would be no big accidents in Xi'an. Of course, he didn't worry about himself, but he was afraid that Xian and Auntie Wang would be threatened. Lu Changxi also got something. The relationship between the Lu family and the Qin family must be maintained. Lu Changxi had already made contact with Qin Shing, the future partner of the Qin family. At least, he was ahead of others. Qin Shing watched Lu Changxi get in the car and leave. Chang Baji and Hao Lei sent him to Jindi Farong Shijia. When he came back, Auntie Wang and Xian were still waiting for him. Qin Shing chatted with Auntie Wang for a while. Wang Li first asked about Qin Shing's father's health. Qin Shing answered them one by one and said that he had gone to Shanghai to see his grandmother and small aunt. His grandmother was 90 years old now. Then Wang Li asked about Qin Shing's relationship. Qin Shing didn't hide it. He said that everything was fine with Lin Su. Lin Su was helping her sister deal with the company's affairs in Shanghai. When she was done, he would take her back to Xi'an. Then Wang Li asked Qin Shing when he planned to get married. Qin Shing first said that he was not in a hurry. Then he said that he needed to discuss with his family and Lin Su. Except for the heavy smog in winter, the weather in Xi'an was not bad in other seasons. After all, the Great Qin Mountain was a natural oxygen bar. It was spring and the weather was good. Hao Lei drove Chang Baji and Qin Shing along Meridian Avenue to the south. Lao Chang, it seems that this is your first time back to Xi'an since you left the year before last, right? Qin Shing asked casually. Chang Baji and Qin Shing were more familiar with Meridian Avenue than anyone else. When he returned to Xi'an, Chang Baji didn't have many feelings. After all, he was too familiar with this land. It was just that there were not many changes in less than 2 years. Sort of, Chang Baji said faintly. Qin Shing didn't want to ask Chang Baji about his feelings and so on. He just replied, "So you don't plan to go back to see the old ancestor?" Chang Baji shook his head and said, "After I went to Shanghai, my master asked someone to tell me that the next time I see him will be the day he dies. So I won't go." Chang Baji could ignore anyone's words, but he dared not disobey his master's words. This was also the reason why his master asked him to go to Shanghai to assist Qin Shing. Chang Baji quit his job in Xi'an without hesitation and went to Shanghai the next day. "I see," Qin Shing said faintly. He could understand the old ancestor's temper. Chang Baji was already considered good. After some disciples left, the old ancestor never planned to see them again. In the old ancestor's words, they would never cross paths again. When they arrived at the foot of the Zhongnan Mountains where old Master Qin was buried, an Audi Q7 was parked on the side of the remote dirt road. This dirt road was the only way to old Master Qin's grave. Qin Shing didn't think much of it. He thought it was some tourists who came for a walk in the spring. After all, there were many tourists in Zhongnan Mountains. However, when they were about to reach the old master's grave, they found 2 strange women standing there. Qin Shing could not help but frown slightly. After all, there were not many people who knew that his grandfather was buried here. How did these 2 women know about it? Qin Shing subconsciously stopped. Hao Lei frowned and asked, "Lao Qin, do you know them?" Qin Shing didn't need to think at all to reply, "No." "Then who are they?" Hao Lei became more and more curious. It seemed that the Audi Q7 should have been driven here by the mother and daughter. Obviously, it was not a chance encounter. After all, they brought flowers and offerings. Qin Shing said faintly, "Let's take a look first." The mother and daughter at old Master Qin's grave were none other than Zhao Anji and her daughter, who had come back from Canada. They met Qin Chang'an after meeting with their mother's family yesterday. Last night, they flew from Beijing to Xi'an overnight. This morning, they came to pay their respects to old Master Qin. Zhao Anji didn't know how to comment on this father-in-law. In other words, she was not qualified to comment on Old Master Qin at all. Others didn't know about Old Master Qin's legendary life. She didn't dare to say that she knew everything, but she knew more than most people. Mom, is my grandfather buried here? Yaya, who was standing next to Zhao Anji, asked softly. She didn't know why. Although she had never seen this grandfather, when she stood here, her heart was very heavy. It seemed that she had been with her grandfather for many years. Maybe this was family. It was not that Yaya had never seen such a grave before. When she returned to the country in the past, she followed her mother to sweep the graves of her grandparents, so Yaya was already used to it. Of course, she also had some understanding of Chinese culture. Today, Yaya obviously dressed up carefully. Her shoulder-length hair was matched with a black suit. She looked very cold and was half a head taller than Zhao Anji. Zhao Anji thought for a moment and replied, "Well, this is your grandfather, my father-in-law, the spiritual pillar of our Qin family." Zhao Anji hated Qin Chongqing, but she didn't hate Old Master Qin at all. She only complained a little, but she respected this old man from the bottom of her heart. Without him, there would be no Qin family today. Why is Grandpa buried here instead of in Beijing? Yaya asked confusedly. Her big eyes were full of curiosity. Zhao Anji stared at the chirping bird on the grave, which she couldn't name. She chuckled and said, "How many people can understand your grandfather's life? Your father doesn't understand, and neither does your uncle. Maybe your brother knows a little. After all, he spent the longest time with your grandfather." "Then when can I see my brother and sister?" Yaya asked eagerly. Zhao Anji had long noticed Qin Xing and the others not far away. After all, Qin Chang'an had told her that Qin Xing had also returned to Xi'an yesterday. This morning, he would definitely come back to pay his respects to Old Master Qin. That was why Zhao Anji was waiting here. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.